Hello everyone, this is Fanfic Audiobook. Here you find original fan made audio stories.
Ninja System, From Beginner to Legendary Master. Part 1. How are the children of the ninja world different from us? It's simple. Although everyone looks similar on the outside, they aren't even the same species. The ninja world is a supernatural world. Every living thing here has a supernatural energy called chakra in their bodies. Because the Otsutsuki clan planted a god tree 1,000 years ago, the entire world has been contaminated and assimilated by chakra, not just the cells, but even the soul. To be more specific, a human body in the ninja world has up to 130 trillion cells, whereas the human body on our Earth has around 30 to 60 trillion. The difference is a full 2 to 4 times. As for the differences during childhood, Lee Sen has a lot to say on the matter. After all, he has been rebirthed here and given a new name, Higashino Shin. Through Higashino Shin's observations, he found that children in the ninja world are similar to those in his previous world before the age of 2, but after that, it's like they hit the fast lane. After age 2, their physical fitness and intelligence experience a small explosion. It's as if they are in a hurry to grow up, giving off a feeling of being ripened by an invisible force. This is especially obvious in large and small ninja clans, or in families that have produced ninjas for 2 or 3 consecutive generations. Higashino Shin felt that chakra was practically like a super fertilizer for humans. Perhaps it's the result of natural selection from 1,000 years of war in the ninja world. In those chaotic eras, ninjas had to go to the battlefield to kill enemies at a very young age. Those whose mental resolve and physical fitness didn't meet the standard were likely eliminated. Even after the one country, one village system was established, and despite several great ninja wars, the 5 great nations have enjoyed significant periods of peace. However, precocious children are still not uncommon. Here, if a small child acts as deep and somber as an adult, there's no need to fear suspicion. At most, others will think you're a genius who matured early, and that your future capacity will exceed others. That little white-haired Sakata Jintoki, oh wait, Kakashi Hatake, had a precocious, dead fish, face since he was a kid. He graduated from the Ninja Academy at 5, became a chunin and went out to kill people at 6, causing a sensation. He was known as the representative of Konoha's geniuses and a role model for all children. The future paragon of filial piety, Uchiha Itachi, got his first kill on the battlefield at age 4. By age 6, he was already pondering the peace of his family, the village, and the ninja world. Did anyone say anything? Not only did his father fail to provide proper guidance, he was even proud of it. The Sandaime, Hiruzen Sarutobi, even praised him for having the mindset of a Hokage. Now, Higashino Shin has also become a precocious child like them. The difference is that his precocity is due to his rebirth, he was born with the memories of his previous life. However, compared to the 2 previous examples of precocity, Higashino Shin is merely steady in his behavior. He isn't as flighty or childish as his peers, but he certainly won't go around pondering grand societal issues or consulting strange middle-aged men about them. He didn't want to be noticed by those with hidden agendas. The world of Naruto isn't just about hot-blooded passion, behind that passion lies a lot of darkness. Higashino Shin didn't care about the peace of the ninja world. Having been reborn, he only wanted to live for himself and make his life a bit more exciting. As for the possibility of dying in a war one day, that would only mean he wasn't strong enough, and that his wisdom and effort were insufficient. If that were the case, then so be it. It's not like he hadn't died before. Compared to death, he was more afraid of being as ordinary as an ant and as worthless as dust, just like in his previous life. Land of Fire, Konoha Village. The sun had not yet risen, and the east was turning pale. Inside the village, aside from the bustling central commercial and administrative districts, the surroundings were densely forested, dotted with scattered buildings and numerous training grounds. To the northwest, in a small training ground closest to a certain residential area, a small figure was sweating profusely, performing basic physical exercises. This was a young boy with short, dark brown hair. He was fair-skinned with red lips and white teeth, looking quite delicate and cute, appearing to be about 3 or 4 years old. He was Lee Sen. Of course, the name Lee Sen was a thing of the past, now he was Higashino Shin. At this moment, Higashino Shin was running laps around the training ground. The training grounds set within the village weren't large, it didn't take long to run a lap. Higashino Shin maintained a brisk pace, keeping his breathing steady and rhythmic while counting the laps in his head. Once he reached his target, he switched to frog jumps, and then transitioned to running laps while doing a handstand. After completing those, he continued with push-ups, pull-ups, and other exercises. In addition to these, he would later practice throwing techniques for kunai and shuriken. Targets were tied to various branches of the large trees in the training ground. From time to time, a thud-thud sound could be heard, the sound of a sharp weapon hitting a wooden target. Of course, the volume of all his training exercises wasn't huge. Because the current Higashino Shin hadn't yet learned to refine and use chakra, he couldn't sustain such a heavy workload with just his physical strength at less than 4 years old. If he were to train himself to death like Might Dai and his son, or the future Rock Lee, he would only end up crippling himself. The ability to refine and use chakra is what separates ordinary people from ninjas. Higashino Shin was working so hard now to prepare for refining chakra later. After all, while almost everyone in the ninja world has it, it's not something you can just refine whenever you want. Unless you are exceptionally gifted, without the hard work of the early stages to forge a strong body and a focused spirit, you could sit there until you die and still never refine any chakra. The reason ninjas can become ninjas is that they can endure hardships that ordinary people cannot persist through. Even the simple-minded Obito and Prince Naruto, aside from their powerful bloodlines, had put in grueling work privately since childhood. Higashino Shin would rest for a while after completing a round of training. Following the method his father taught him, he would carefully use his mind to visualize and sense every corner of his body. This was a very tedious activity, but it was a step that had to be maintained. After persisting for about 5 minutes, he would continue with the next round of training. It wasn't until the sun rose and his physical strength was exhausted that he considered his daily set goals complete. By this time, several older people had also arrived at the training ground. Looking at them, they seemed to be students from the Ninja Academy. It was currently spring break, and these were people who lived near this small training ground. This kind of facility was prepared exactly for them. As for ninja clans, they had their own exclusive training grounds. Being a ninja is a profession that places great importance on information security, especially regarding family-inherited ninjutsu and secret techniques. A girl of about 8 or 9 years old saw Higashino Shin sitting to the side drinking water, covered in sweat, and ran over curiously. "Oh, little brother, you're here so early." "Yes, big sister, I've already finished today's exercises," Higashino Shin replied, looking up with a face full of innocence, shamelessly emphasizing the title, Big Sister. The little girl beamed at being called a sister, and patted Higashino Shin's head. "Working so hard at such a young age, tell sister, do you have some amazing dream? Here it comes. In the ninja world, if you see a hard-working child, you have to ask about their dream. If you don't follow this procedure, you'd be too embarrassed to even greet people outside. Of course. I want to become strong so I can protect the village and my comrades." Higashino Shin gave a generic reason. Similar dreams like becoming the Hokage were constantly on the lips of the village children. Protecting comrades, becoming the Hokage, these were the most politically correct dreams in Konoha. Saying them out loud demonstrated a pure will of fire. What a reliable junior. The girl ruffled Higashino Shin's hair and then waved at him. "Seeing you so diligent, big sister has to go work hard at her training too." Good luck, big sister." The training of these academy students was much more interesting to watch than Higashino Shin's. Whether it was shuriken and kunai practice or sparring sessions, the strength and speed were incomparable to Higashino Shin's, making him feel like he was watching a kung fu blockbuster. If even academy students were this impressive, how spectacular would it be when actual ninjas, especially those at the Jonin level, fought? It certainly wouldn't be like throwing pots and pans at each other. It would at least have to be like a special effects movie. This was a completely different experience from watching the anime in his previous life. As expected, whether or not one can refine and use chakra is the key benchmark that distinguishes a ninja from an ordinary person. Higashino Shin watched for a while, then dragged his tired body toward home, admiring the busy morning scenery of Konoha along the way. Occasionally looking up, he could see the three Hokage faces on the distant Hokage rock, appearing as if they were plated in gold under the sunlight. After returning home, Higashino Shin first went to the bathroom to wash up, then sat properly at the dining table, ready to eat. The food was already set on the table. Although the style and flavor were quite different from his previous life, he had already gotten used to it. It wasn't a big deal, as long as it wasn't some kind of dirty, unidentifiable mush. Sitting across the table was his biological mother in this world, a beautiful young woman with long brown hair. Her name was Higashino Megumi. She was a commoner who originally had no surname. Her name was simply Megumi before marriage, and she took her husband's surname, Higashino, after marrying. Higashino Shin's father in this life was named Higashino Jiro. He was a man with an ordinary face but a tall build and decent strength as a Konoha Chunin. However, he wasn't home at the moment, having been out on a village mission for some days. Yes, Higashino Shin was not an orphan in the world of Naruto. He was lucky enough to have both parents alive, so he didn't get that heaven-defying power buff that usually comes with being an orphan. Furthermore, his current appearance took entirely after his mother. At not even 4 years old, one could already see a 60% resemblance between the mother and son's features. This made Higashino Shin believe that as long as he didn't grow up poorly, he would likely become a handsome man. Of course, he might also turn out to be a bit of a pretty boy. There was a high probability he wouldn't, because he was certain no one in his family had the bloodline of the Yuki clan from the Land of Water, and he hadn't been a proctologist in his previous life. Higashino Megumi was only 20 when she gave birth and was now 23. Higashino Jiro was about the same, they were even classmates. They were very young, so young that Higashino Shin's psychological age was more than 10 years older than theirs. But now, he had to call them Dad and Mom. Higashino Shin didn't feel embarrassed about this. He hadn't transmigrated and taken over someone else's son's body, he had been directly reincarnated into Higashino Megumi's womb. The couple were truly his biological parents who had given birth to and raised him in this life. There was nothing wrong with calling them mom and dad. The Lee Sen of his previous life wasn't the type of person to be ungrateful or overly sensitive about such things. While eating, Higashino Megumi asked curiously, Shin, I remember you've been training this early every day since you were 3. Is it hard? It's not hard, Mom. On the contrary, I find it quite fun. I like the feeling of getting stronger. Why do you want to get stronger so badly? This is Konoha Village, and I'm going to be a ninja in the future. Do I need a reason to want to be strong? Don't you? Do I? Fine. I hope to become a powerful ninja so I can protect you and father in the future. Facing his biological mother, Higashino Shin didn't play the political correctness card like he did outside, talking about protecting the village or his comrades. Shin, thank you. Higashino Megumi smiled and reached out to ruffle Higashino Shin's hair, saying happily, but you've got it backward. It should be your father and me protecting you. More than that, what makes me happier is that when you talk big like that, you finally look like a child your age. You know, you've always been a bit too precocious. You're not even 4 yet. How should I put it? You make me feel like I haven't had much success as a mother. I remember you never even wet the bed. Even as an infant, you actually knew how to use different cries to remind me to take you to the bathroom. It left me with no chance to even change your diapers. This is completely different from what everyone else says. Being a mom doesn't feel hard at all. Facing his mother's long string of complaints, Higashino Shin felt a bit helpless and decided to be a bit cheeky. Oh. Then it seems my not wetting the bed has truly disappointed you, Mrs. Higashino. Thump. Higashino Megumi landed a light punch on her son's head. Call me mom. Who's the fool that taught you to call me that? Alright, Mrs. Higashino. I learned it from Uncle Kuroda downstairs. Thump. I told you to call me mom. No problem, Mrs. Higashino. Thump. After breakfast, Higashino Megumi went to the bedroom to change and hurriedly prepared to head out. Before leaving, she instructed, Shin, mom is going to work. Take care of yourself. If anything happens, come find me at the hospital. Okay, I got it, mom. Like her husband, Higashino Jiro, Higashino Megumi was also a ninja. In terms of professional rank, she was even half a level higher than her husband. She was a special jonin specializing in medical ninjutsu, currently working at the Konoha Hospital. Years ago, Konoha's Princess Tsunade, moved by the deaths of her younger brother Nawaki and numerous comrades, proposed that the village should strengthen the training of medical ninjas and have them join ninja squads to reduce the mortality rate during wars or missions. Although this policy hadn't been implemented before her boyfriend Kato Dan also passed away, Konoha officially followed through on her proposal after the war ended. Higashino Megumi was a beneficiary of this policy. Her ninja combat talent was limited, but she was quite gifted in medical ninjutsu. Medical ninjutsu requires extremely high chakra control, an area where women have a natural advantage. Since giving birth to Higashino Shin, Higashino Megumi had taken a break for over 2 years. On one hand, she was taking care of her son, on the other, she was studying to improve herself. Once Higashino Shin showed he could look after himself, she went back to work at the hospital. Because medical ninjas are relatively specialized and difficult to train, there was never enough staff, no matter how many they tried to produce. Fortunately, Higashino Shin had always acted very maturely, allowing the couple to feel at ease leaving him home alone, which even saved them the expense of hiring a nanny. As was typical, Higashino Megumi went straight to work, and after Higashino Shin finished washing the dishes, he picked up his books and began studying diligently at home. Children in the ninja world are generally precocious, let alone a transmigrator like him with the soul of an adult. Around the age of 2, Higashino Shin completed his basic education in the ninja world script with his mother's help, and subsequently began reading various books introducing the ninja world. To live well in this world, one must first understand it. This primarily includes the geography and history of the ninja world. Geography was easy enough. Whether in his own family's study or the Konoha library, he could find a large amount of non-classified information introducing various large and small nations. As for history, there were very few related records. It seemed that few people in the ninja world specialized in recording history. In particular, the thousand-year history of the Sengoku period was almost a blank slate. He wondered how much effort a certain black, filial son had put into this. Perhaps some records could be found in ancient clans, such as the Senju, Uchiha, and Hyuga, or among the daimyo and noble families of various countries. But these were clearly not resources he could access for reading right now. Fortunately, Higashino Shin's goal wasn't to become a geographer or a historian. The publicly available geographical knowledge of the ninja world had already given him a basic understanding of the world's nations. As for history, with the help of his memories of the plot from his previous life, his understanding of the general timeline of the ninja world's millennium was likely clearer than 99.9% of the people in this world, which was sufficient. He had completed all the aforementioned learning tasks before the age of 3. After turning 3, he began the second phase of his cultivation and study, which was mainly divided into 3 directions. First was daily physical exercise, with projects formulated by his parents based on their experience, while he monitored his own endurance and increased the training volume periodically. Second was learning the basic knowledge of chakra and the human body, as well as practicing hand seals, to prepare for extracting chakra and practicing ninjutsu later on. Third was studying several branches of natural sciences, including mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, cryptography, and so on. Yes, shinobi have to study these subjects. One only needs to look at the content of Naruto's first Chunin exams in the original work to know this, even though the knowledge involved in that exam was at a level only Chunin and above needed to master. A qualified ninja, if not a polymath, should at least have a basic understanding of this knowledge, except for idiots like Naruto who only know how to fight when their blood boils. The teaching content of the Ninja Academy also includes those subjects, but it doesn't require students to go too deep into them. This is Konoha Village, a military stronghold of the Land of Fire. The main task is still to train combat personnel. Combat ability is the primary standard for measuring a ninja. Students who are screened out due to a lack of combat talent will then choose necessary subjects for further study based on their own interests and talents. They can later become the various types of talent Konoha needs, including sealing, code development and decryption, basic scientific research, medical care, etc., but they will not become frontline combat personnel. Although Tsunade requires medical ninjas to have combat capabilities, not everyone is like her. With the bloodline support of the Senju and Uzumaki, a broad mind, incredible punching power, and the ability to both heal and carry the team. Higashino Shin's goal was the same. Like the previous geography and history subjects, these were just preliminary studies, and he didn't intend to become an expert in these fields. He studied these only to serve his goal of becoming a more well-rounded ninja. So far, Higashino Shin is nearly 4 years old, and his preliminary study of the above subjects is nearing its end. The goal for the next stage is to work hard to become a ninja. This was his study plan for the past 2 years. He followed it every day without a single day of laziness, showing a terrifying level of self-discipline. The motivation for this self-discipline stemmed from his experiences in his previous life. Once, he was also a promising student who had been exceptionally bright since childhood and took first place in every exam. Unfortunately, a lazy and playful nature ruined his future and his life. Since he had the chance to live again, he would absolutely not repeat the old path he took as Lee Sen. Now, Higashino Shin only wanted to say, studying makes me happy, and cultivation is even more infinitely joyful. Time quietly passed for more than half a month. Higashino Shin meticulously executed his cultivation and study plan, only occasionally going downstairs to stroll through the village, admire the scenery, and relax his mind. After all, checking in at famous scenic spots and eating a bowl of the famous Otsutsuki Ichiraku ramen was one of the great pleasures of coming to the Naruto world. Unfortunately, the taste of Ichiraku ramen was just okay. It wasn't the kind of cuisine that could literally glow. Konoha was the same as ever. The villagers lived their daily lives, the ninjas went about their business, and there was no atmosphere of tension. For the time being, there were no signs of a ninja war breaking out. Higashino Shin also basically had no interaction with children his age in the village. This seemed like an abnormal childhood, but he didn't care. His childhood in his previous life had actually been quite good, and he had no psychological trauma that needed mending. Living again, he spent almost all his time on his own efforts. On this day, as usual, Higashino Shin woke up early to go to the training ground to exercise, then went home to eat and study. Higashino Megumi usually worked at the hospital until evening before coming home, so she would prepare the meals in the morning and put them in the refrigerator. Higashino Shin only needed to take them out and heat them up at mealtime. Actually, Higashino Shin had mentioned that he could cook himself, but Higashino Megumi insisted on this, calling it under the beautiful name, not depriving her of her joy as a mother. Higashino Shin didn't insist on the matter, and it had been this way for the past 2 years. Only today was a bit of an exception. When Higashino Shin finished his morning studies and prepared to have lunch, he opened the refrigerator only to find that there was only enough for one meal, and the rest were raw ingredients. Could his mother have forgotten? As a medical special jonin, it was naturally impossible for Higashino Megumi to make such a mistake. Higashino Shin looked at the calendar on the wall and quickly guessed the reason. At around 7 p.m., a knock suddenly sounded at the door outside. Higashino Shin put down the scroll in his hand and got up to open the front door. He saw a tall young man with ordinary looks and black hair tied in a mid-high short ponytail standing outside. The man carried a shinobi katana on his back and wore a standard Konoha green vest, which wasn't very clean, looking travel-worn and dusty. When he saw Higashino Shin opening the door, his serious face instantly turned into a sunny smile, and he gave a thumbs up with his right hand, a glint reflecting off his pearly white teeth. Yo, kid. Are you happy? Are you surprised? Higashino Shin. Kid, What's with that expression? Welcome home, father. Don't have such a stiff face, kid. Can't you act a little happier and give me a sense of accomplishment? Is that so? Higashino Shin thought seriously for a moment and then replied, Alright, if it's just that kind of request, I can satisfy you. After saying that, with a bang, he slammed the front door shut again. The man outside slapped his palm against his forehead, let out a long sigh, and helplessly knocked on the door once more. The door was opened again, and Higashino Shin had a look of innocent surprise on his face as he said unexpectedly, Father, you're back. There's absolutely no sense of accomplishment left, hey. Higashino Jiro said expressionlessly, then delivered a punch to Higashino Shin's head. Truly an uncute son. Truly a hard-to-please father. Higashino Jiro wasn't surprised by this answer, as if he were already used to it. He walked straight into the house and asked curiously, Shin, did you somehow know I was coming back today? Yeah, pretty much. Did your mother tell you? Mother didn't say anything, I guessed it. Oh. Tell me the basis for your guess. First, today is March 25th. Second, based on the pattern of your mission times over the past year, I figured there was a high probability you'd be home today. Still as smart and sharp as ever, Shin. Higashino Jiro gave his son an appreciative look, then suddenly thought of a question. Did you also guess what kind of mission I was on? Probably. Oh my, that's beyond your old man's imagination. Higashino Jiro happily rubbed Higashino Shin's head. Well, I'll go wash up first. Your mother should be back soon too. Higashino Shin watched the young man walk toward the bathroom, the corners of his mouth curving slightly. This was his biological father in the Naruto world, Higashino Jiro. As for what mission he was on, Higashino Shin could indeed guess. It was most likely a border patrol mission. Except for Anbu personnel, the routine missions for ordinary ninjas within the village are like punching in for work and don't require leaving home, while commission missions from clients outside the village have irregular durations and no set pattern. Only border stationing missions have standard rotation times. Although no war had broken out yet, the borders were not safe. Combining the Naruto information he had learned online in his previous life, Higashino Shin knew that the Second and Third Wars were essentially continuous. The period of peace in between was not tranquil, border frictions always existed. After coming to this world, he had also confirmed this situation from his parents' mouths. Except for the hidden mist village, Konoha, Sunagakure, Iwagakure, and Kumogakure all maintained a considerable number of troops along their borders. Right now, all that was missing for a war to break out was a fuse. Higashino Shin knew they were waiting for a sacrificial lamb, and he was talking about you, a certain, strongest, third cage. And the regular main force stationed at the borders consisted primarily of civilian ninjas like those in his family. When Higashino Megumi returned home, she was carrying several large boxes. Soon, the table was covered with food and a birthday cake. The lights were turned off, and the candles were lit. After Higashino Shin made a wish and blew out the candles, the lights came back on. Shin, happy birthday. Thank you, father, mother. Today was Higashino Shin's 4th birthday. Looking at his young parents before him, he felt very happy in his heart. His soul was already 40 years old, long past the age of hot-bloodedness. He had no interest in or ability for things like world peace in the ninja world or changing the tragedies of the original characters. But this complete and happy family was his spiritual harbor in this world, an existence that must be protected. So his thanks just now were very sincere, and he didn't act cheeky as he usually did. Higashino Jiro took a sip of sake and lamented, Our Shin is good in every way, he's just a bit too precocious. He doesn't even have any friends, and no friends his age came to celebrate his birthday. Higashino Megumi nodded in agreement. He probably thinks those other kids are too childish. After all, he wasn't even willing to attend preschool. I'll have them once I start the Ninja Academy. Konoha did have preschools, similar to kindergartens, in more than one. They were generally established for children from civilian families whose parents were busy with work and had no time to look after them. There were also many children from small and medium-sized ninja clans there, such as the Yamanaka and Nara clans of the Hokage faction. As for traditional populous clans like the Uchiha and Hyuga, the preschool education for children of the appropriate age was completed within the clan. The preschools established by Konoha generally allowed children to go at age 3. Besides completing basic education, they also had the duty of screening students for the ninja academy. After all, not all children have the talent to be a ninja. Much of the observation begins before enrollment. Otherwise, if someone studied for 6 years and couldn't even extract chakra, wouldn't that be a waste of their own time and the village's educational resources? Shin, this is the gift mother got for you. Higashino Megumi took out a brand new leg strap style ninja tool pouch. Thank you, mother. Higashino Shin accepted it without ceremony. He already had 2 ninja tool pouches, but they were the waist back style. Here, this is my gift. Higashino Jiro took out a short sword and handed it over. Higashino Shin took it and drew it to take a look. It was a completely pitch black, straight short sword, similar to the Anbu standard style. Unlike the Kumogakure ninjas, besides clans like the Gecko family who specialized in sword techniques, there weren't many people in Konoha who used long tachi. This wasn't a problem, as the length was suitable for his age. The problem was that this was a wooden sword. Although it felt heavy in the hand and looked to have a dense texture that wouldn't break easily, it was still made of wood. Higashino Shin looked at his father expressionlessly. What are you looking at? Kid, is there something you're dissatisfied with? This is made of black ironwood from the land of iron. It's extremely hard and most suitable for practice. Did you want a real sword? That would be too dangerous for you right now. Dad is right, it's still too early for a real sword. No, I'm very satisfied. Thank you, father. After thanking him, Higashino Shin said, what I wanted to say is, you should teach me how to extract chakra now. There were many books and scrolls in the Higashino family's study, but they were all basic information and theories. There was no chakra extraction method, let alone ninjutsu scrolls. Recklessly extracting chakra and practicing ninjutsu without guidance is a very dangerous thing. Obviously, the couple had thought of this long ago and put all those things away. The couple looked at each other upon hearing this. They had originally intended to refuse, planning to wait another year before they started teaching him. But considering his son's precocity, and thinking back to that other genius in the village a few years ago, the one who graduated from the Ninja Academy at 5 and became a Chunin at 6, he finally made a decision. Higashino Jiro nodded seriously. All right. Higashino Shin was overjoyed. Yes. Finally taking the most important step of my ninja career. Then he saw his father hand him a key. The condition is that you have to find them yourself. Higashino Shin. Since things had come to this, he decided to eat first. As it turned out, Higashino Jiro's little test for his son was pointless. After dinner, Higashino Shin took the key and didn't bother searching the house randomly. Instead, he went straight to the study and walked over to the pillar next to the bookshelf. He moved a stool to stand on, tapped along the pillar from top to bottom, and then pried open a decorative wooden board on the wall, revealing an old-fashioned key lock storage box inside. After opening it with the key, he saw that besides some documents and money, there were quite a few scrolls. Higashino Shin turned back to look at his father, who had followed him in. Higashino Jiro was somewhat surprised. How did you know it was here? Did you peek at some point? No, father, I don't have a hobby of spying on anyone's secrets. Then how did you find it? I designed this when I was renovating the house. I wasn't even married to your mother back then, and you weren't even born. I've observed our apartment building before. This load-bearing pillar between the kitchen and the study is redundant. It's that simple. I've been to Uncle Kuroda's daily necessities shop on the first floor. In the same position, there is no load-bearing pillar. Ahahaha, was the flaw that obvious? I thought the design was perfect. Higashino Jiro rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. My sense of accomplishment, ruined once again. Higashino Shin. It wasn't perfect at all. A load-bearing pillar appearing here is clearly wrong. Do you even have basic knowledge of architecture? Higashino Jiro reached out and took the smallest scroll. This is the one. Put everything back the way it was, and let's go to your room. Okay, father. Higashi no Shin didn't ask about the other scrolls. He knew those were likely the ninjutsu accumulated by the Higashino family over several generations. To ninjas from great clans, these might be insignificant, but for a civilian family wanting to grow and prosper, these were the most precious legacy items. Because of power dynamics, the Hokage faction in Konoha naturally suppresses the great ninja clans and supports civilian ninjas. But wouldn't civilian ninjas also want to develop their own families into a ninja clan? Ultimately, civilians are both dissatisfied with and envious of ninja clans. In this regard, all ninja villages are the same, or rather, the whole world is the same. Higashino Shin's key was not taken back by his father, which meant he now had the right to use this place. After all, if his parents didn't have more children, he would be the sole heir of the Higashino family. In the bedroom, Higashino Jiro handed the scroll to Higashino Shin. Read it through yourself first. Ask me if there's anything you don't understand. Okay, father. He opened the scroll and began reading seriously, while Higashino Jiro waited patiently by his side. The chakra extraction technique wasn't complicated. The scroll mostly contained precautions and some small tips to help beginners get started. Thanks to his adult soul and his extensive reading over the past 2 years, Higashino Shin's reading speed and comprehension were top tier. He finished it quickly. Is there anything you don't understand? No. Good. Then give it a try. Remember what I told you before. After every physical workout, you should focus your mind to sense the subtle changes in your body. I remember. That's good. You must not be impatient. Your thoughts must be focused and not wander. This takes time, it could be a few hours, or a few days. I believe you will succeed. Higashino Shin recalled the subtle physical sensations he felt after every past workout. He sat cross-legged on the bed, formed the ram seal with his hands, followed the method in the extraction technique, closed his eyes, and cleared his mind. He gathered his spirit, maintained focus, and discarded all worries of failure. A tangible sense of spirit descended from within his skull, enveloping his whole body, using mental energy to sense the physical energy within his cells. With a year of sensory experience combined with the description of physical energy in the chakra extraction technique, Higashino Shin soon made a discovery. He immediately tried to mobilize it using his mental energy. Following the method in the technique, he roughly estimated the abundance of this physical energy and then intercepted an equal amount of mental energy to mix with it. Energy inside the body is invisible and unquantifiable. One can only rely on mental perception to experiment. The first mix failed. Higashino Shin calmly felt the reaction after the failure. The muscles where the two energies met seemed to twitch slightly. The precautions in the scroll explained that this was a sign of excessive physical energy, the two sides had not reached a balance. He appropriately increased the mental energy a bit. The second mix failed, but he could barely feel any movement in the flesh where they met. He increased the mental energy just a tiny bit more. This time, the two energies were like finding their perfect match, quickly embracing each other and intertwining to fuse into one. As this mixed energy appeared, it rapidly traveled through the chakra pathways, finally gathering at the spiral pathway in the lower abdomen. That place wasn't the Dantian mentioned in novels or traditional medicine from his previous life. The physical structure of humans in the ninja world was different, they used a chakra network, and there was no concept of a Dantian. Higashino Jiro watched his son sitting cross-legged on the bed with his eyes closed and thought with a slight smile, this is the crucial first step to becoming a ninja. Let's see if you have enough patience. After waiting a few seconds, he quietly backed out of the room. However, before he even reached the door, a voice came from behind him. Father, I think I've successfully extracted chakra. Higashino Jiro spun around, eyes wide. What? So fast? Are you sure? I'm sure. Don't stop. Keep extracting. The first time is very important. Continue until you feel physical fatigue. Hearing this, Higashino Shin stopped talking and continued extracting chakra according to the method. Physical energy and mental energy mobilized from all over his body mixed together in waves, and immediately, a steady stream of energy flowed into his lower abdomen. Soon, Higashino Shin felt a slight sense of fatigue throughout his body, so he immediately released the ram seal and ended the extraction. According to the chakra theory he had read in books, continuing further wouldn't be called extraction, but squeezing. Unless it was a life or death battle, this was not recommended. Over-squeezing would shorten one's lifespan. Squeezing to the extreme would result in total cellular exhaustion and instant death. Seeing Higashino Shin finish his hand seal, Higashino Jiro lunged to his son's side in one stride, placed his hand on the boy's lower abdomen, and used his own chakra to connect them. Soon, he laughed happily. To succeed in extracting it so quickly the first time, and the amount of chakra is also quite good. You really are a genius. My son has the potential to be Hokage. I feel like you're jinxing me. How could Higashino Jiro understand this, great emperor, meme? He immediately denied it. How is that possible? I'm telling the truth. Higashino Shin didn't want his father to keep raising flags, so he curiously changed the subject. Father, how long did it take you the first time? Well, that's not important. An awkward look flashed across Higashino Jiro's face for an instant. He turned and shouted toward the door, Megumi, are you done cleaning up? Bring a piece of chakra induction paper over here. He succeeded that fast. Higashino Megumi, who entered, was also very surprised. She had been hoping to see a rare look of impatience on her precocious, expressionless son's face. Ideally, he would be frustrated for 3 to 5 days, and then she could teach him with the air of an experienced elder, letting him know that his mother is still his mother. As it turned out, her expectations were over before they even began. Higashino Jiro didn't answer her. He took the paper and handed it to Higashino Shin. Mobilize your chakra and channel it in. Taking the paper, Higashino Shin injected his chakra. Soon, the small piece of paper split in two down the middle. One half remained in his hand but was soaking wet, while the other half crumbled into tiny pieces, falling onto the bedsheets like snowflakes. Megumi, did you see that? Born with 3 attributes. Era, it's actually a combination of your wind and earth and my water attribute. As expected of our child, he gathered all our strengths. The vast majority of ninjas are born with only one attribute. To make other attributes manifest, they have to spend a long time training, which isn't easy and is measured in years. If it were simple, there wouldn't be so few ninjas with all attributes in the ninja world. Starting with 3 attributes would undoubtedly save a lot of time in his growth. Of course, more attributes didn't necessarily mean being stronger. A ninja's strength is a composite of chakra volume, tactical methods, combat talent, and other factors. However, having multiple innate attributes gives a ninja more tactical options and makes it harder for their ninjutsu to be countered or targeted by others. So generally, single attribute ninjas will develop their other attributes when they have time. Except for those cheaters who just spam Rasengan. Today is truly a happy day. Come, Megumi, accompany me for a few drinks. Higashino Jiro pulled his wife to leave, then seemed to remember he had a son and turned back. Shin, you should know the follow-up to chakra extraction, right? I know, father. Good, then keep working hard. Remember not to overdo it and go to bed early. A healthy and strong body is the foundation of everything. Seeing his parents leave, Higashino Shin sat silently on the bed, feeling the extracted chakra slowly dissipating. Chakra is not like internal energy or mana, it cannot be accumulated. If not used after extraction, it slowly returns to the body. Unless one uses a special method to store it, such as Tsunade's yin seal. Higashino Shin waited for the chakra to fully dissipate, then immediately formed the ram seal to continue extracting. This was the cultivation of chakra. Because chakra is an energy that is extracted and used immediately, ninjas will extract it before a battle for ease of use during combat. The problem is, your enemies won't stand there waiting for you to extract it slowly. Ninjas are not martial arts heroes, they won't talk to you about morality, let alone wait for you to be ready before deciding the outcome. Ninja is an efficiency-oriented profession. Completing the mission is the primary goal, and for that, they can use any means necessary. Sneak attacks, poisoning, threatening relatives, and so on are all basic operations. So while you're spending time extracting chakra in front of an enemy, their choice will definitely be to come over and send you on your way. With a ninja's speed, a tiny bit of time is enough for them to kill you in 9 different ways. For a ninja to have combat power, they must train chakra extraction until it becomes a physical instinct. The standard for this instinct is not needing to painstakingly balance the ratio of physical and mental energy, nor needing to form hand seals. Instead, with just a thought, the chakra is successfully extracted within the body. Even at the extreme of cultivation, the body will autonomously synthesize some chakra during normal times. The function of the yin seal is to collect and compress this chakra that is normally synthesized and then naturally dissipated, making it convenient to burst out during battle. It's equivalent to having a much larger mana bar than others for free, giving a natural advantage and even maintaining eternal youth. It's said that Tsunade does exactly that. A person in her 50s is still acting young all day, with her apparent age fluctuating between 10 and 30 years old. Extracting chakra again, Higashino Shin found that after having one successful experience, the second time was easier. He no longer had to carefully balance the ratio of the two energies. His body seemed to have a memory, beginning to slowly solidify the synthesis path for chakra. The speed of synthesis also increased slightly, though he still needed the ram seal to assist. Good, this would be his nightly cultivation homework from now on. Until it was trained into a physical instinct. Once the chakra naturally dissipated, Higashino Shin continued with his third extraction. After repeating this cycle several times, Higashino Shin checked the alarm clock and ended tonight's cultivation because it was almost bedtime. After being reborn into the ninja world, his schedule had become extremely disciplined. He slept on time every day to give his body ample recovery time, never leaving fatigue for the next day. The next day, he would also get up on time to exercise, never allowing himself to have thoughts of being lazy and staying in bed. Coming to the living room, he found that his parents had already gone to bed. Several empty wine bottles were placed on the dining table. Both parents were only in their 20s. Normally, a reunion after a short absence would lead to some activities for physical and mental pleasure, but now the master bedroom was completely silent. It seemed the couple had gotten a bit too happy after seeing that their son was a genius. They accidentally drank a few too many bottles and were now sleeping soundly. Ninja is a profession that requires constant vigilance, which is why alcohol is one of the 3 inhibitions. To let them indulge like this once, besides happiness, the family was also a harbor that provided peace of mind. Humans are an intelligent species prone to extremes, and ninjas who possess great power are even more so. The masterminds behind the scenes either had too many little brothers die, or their goddess died, or their good friend died, and so they all turned into lunatics. A happy family is the medicine for all of this. Unfortunately, that is exactly what many ninjas lack. Higashino Shin quietly tidied up the empty wine bottles and appetizers on the table, did a quick cleaning, and prepared to wash up and go to sleep. After returning to the bedroom, seeing that there was still some time, he sat silently by the bed and practiced his hand sign speed. Currently, he was still unsure about his future fighting style. Because he didn't know yet whether ninjutsu, taijutsu, or genjutsu would suit him better, but regardless, there was nothing wrong with grinding his hand sign speed first. When his designated bedtime arrived, Higashino Shin extracted chakra one last time for the day. Once he felt his cells beginning to tire but his body brimming with power, he fell asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow, letting the chakra dissipate naturally. The biological clock he had developed over the years allowed him to fall asleep instantly, quickly entering the land of dreams. But today, something went wrong. He soon found that he was still conscious, extraordinarily so, as if his senses had become much sharper. This shouldn't be happening. In this rebirth, his family was whole and happy, and he lived a fulfilling life every day without any mental exhaustion. There was no way he should have insomnia. Could it be that the joy of successfully refining chakra for the first time had made him too excited? Or was it caused by the chakra dissipating within his body? Since he couldn't sleep, Higashino Shin decided to go to the study to look at some books on chakra theory, perhaps he could find an answer there. But he soon discovered that he couldn't move at all, his body felt as if it were confined to the bed. This situation felt somewhat familiar, and he quickly remembered experiencing a similar problem before the college entrance exam in his previous life. There were a few nights back then when a similar situation occurred. His eyes could see clearly, but his perspective was fixed, his body was completely immobile, and an uncontrollable fear would spread. It had terrified him at the time, until he later learned it was sleep paralysis caused by excessive stress, commonly known as ghost pressing on the bed, which often happens to adolescents under too much pressure. Since he had experienced it before and knew the cause, there was nothing to be afraid of. Higashino-shin even observed his familiar bedroom ceiling with interest in this state. Then he realized he was wrong. This was absolutely not the same thing as the sleep paralysis from his previous life. His body was indeed fixed, completely unable to move, and his eyeballs couldn't turn. However, his perspective could rotate, he could look wherever he wanted, at will, like a fixed camera that could be adjusted to any angle. And then he saw his body sleeping soundly on the bed. At this moment, he seemed to be floating above his body. What was this? Soul emergence. Calm down. Higashino-shin began to analyze carefully. This was the ninja world. Different from his previous life, souls were real and visible, and he knew of several types. Not to mention the dead lying in the Pure Land who could be pulled out by Edo Tensei. Among the living, Orochimaru would likely start researching how to cut his own soul in a few years, and the late Kato Dan used to enjoy letting his soul fly out to attack others. Even a shadow clone could split one's consciousness. But all of those could move freely, unlike him now, who could only see but not move. After thinking about the known information for a while and finding that it didn't match his situation, Higashino-shin began to observe the world from this perspective, trying to analyze the cause. Then he discovered the difference between this perspective and his usual one. The world was still the same world, the environment still the same environment. But besides these, the space seemed to be filled everywhere with an omnipresent, extremely thin mist. This was something that could not be seen or felt from a physical perspective. Under this special perspective, these mists showed a ribbon-like fluidity, like rivers flowing freely between heaven and earth, appearing in faint shades of white, red, green, purple, blue, and so on. What is this? Higashino-shin tried to move them with his thoughts and found that he could actually nudge them slightly. He tried to entice the most abundant red mist. When a trace of red merged into his consciousness, Higashino-shin immediately felt an incredibly violent aura invading. Danger! Danger! He immediately instinctively cut off the connection and expelled that trace of red mist. He could actually expel it voluntarily. Then there was nothing to fear. So he tried other colors and found them all dangerous, but unlike the red's invasion, the other colors seemed to want to assimilate him. Only the white was different. The white mist seemed to be trying to decompose him, but its power was too weak, making the decomposition very slow and within a bearable range. Higashino-shin found that after these white mists mixed and entangled with his consciousness, they flowed into his body sleeping on the bed. He observed calmly and found that the body showed no abnormalities. The conscious entity floating above the body seemed to have become a filter, resisting the decomposition power of the white mist and delivering the filtered mist to the physical body. While filtering, Higashino-shin was also thinking. What exactly were these mists? After going through all the ninja world information he knew, only one answer remained. It was natural energy. But were there so many types of natural energy? The original story didn't mention this. Could this be his golden finger? Yes, as a reincarnator, how could Higashino-shin not want to cheat? After all, using cheats in this world was legal and wouldn't get his account banned. Setting aside various bloodline cheats, in the late stage, the administrator Sage of Six Paths even personally stepped in to give cheats to his own reincarnated sons. He gave them bloodlines, then his sons reincarnated chakra, then instant resurrection, and then six paths yin and yang power. There was nothing left to give. He had no shame at all. After his rebirth, Higashino-shin was just a commoner, not a descendant of the six paths. He had no sage eyes, no sage body, and no one had stuffed a pet into his stomach to act as a hand warmer. There was a time when he even called out for a system, a status panel, or a deep blue before sleeping at night, but there was no response. So he began to study with desperate self-discipline, trying to become powerful through his own cultivation. He had even planned that if this body really had no talent in the future, he would go and acknowledge might die as his godfather and practice the 8 gates to burn his life away. As for seeking out Orochimaru, he hadn't considered it. That guy was too sinister, ordinary people couldn't handle him and would easily become experimental disposables. He didn't expect his golden finger to arrive today. Doesn't that mean he won't have to work desperately hard in the future? If I worked hard before the golden finger arrived, and I still work hard after it arrives, then hasn't the golden finger come for nothing? No, Higashino Shin felt that, on the contrary, he would need to work even harder in the future. Just then, Higashino Shin suddenly felt his conscious entity becoming unable to hold on. If it continued, he would vanish and become part of the white mist, so he immediately and actively cut off the connection between the two, like a scumbag who disappears after tricking a girl into bed. His conscious entity felt a wave of exhaustion. With a thought, it returned to the body on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. It seemed that this cheat wasn't easy to use either. One moment of carelessness could turn him into a vegetable. Natural energy is good, but one mustn't overindulge. Taking too much makes it easy to ascend to heaven. The next morning, Higashino Shin woke up on time. Last night, he had repeatedly extracted chakra for several rounds and enticed natural energy while in a spiritual state to resist its decomposition power. His nightlife could be considered quite rich. He was still wondering if he would be mentally exhausted today. To his surprise, when he woke up, not only was his body light and healthy, but even his spirit was clearer than before. He felt completely refreshed. In other words, that filtered white mist-like natural energy had a nourishing effect on both the body and spirit. This would require careful observation and experience to conclude later, but from the current situation, it didn't seem bad. His parents, who had drunk too much alcohol last night, were still sleeping soundly. Higashino Shin didn't disturb them. As usual, he simply heated up some hard-boiled eggs, bread, and milk kept in the fridge, ate a nutritious breakfast, and went straight to the training ground. He didn't know if there was a sun in Los Angeles at 4 in the morning. But there certainly wasn't one in Konoha at 5 in the morning. He had stayed up a bit late last night and hadn't actually gotten his usual 8 hours of sleep, yet he felt no sleepiness or fatigue at all. Excellent, very energetic. It seemed that with the nourishment of natural energy, he wouldn't have to worry about lack of sleep affecting his body in the future, and his daily time for cultivation and study had increased significantly. If this were his previous life, he would simply have the innate holy body of a beast of burden. Wait, I'm already cultivating transcendent power. Why on earth should I be a beast of burden for you all? I don't eat beef. Soon, Higashino Shin began his daily physical exercise, but unlike before, he was now a quasi-ninja who could refine and use chakra. Sitting quietly, hands forming the ram seal, spiritual energy and physical energy smoothly combined to form chakra, flowing into his meridians. When he stood up again, he suddenly felt as if he were in a new world. His body had become much lighter, and his dynamic vision had been enhanced. The leaves falling from the large trees seemed to have slowed down. With a lightning-fast reach, Higashino Shin caught a leaf that happened to fly in front of him and stared at it in a daze. The veins on the leaf were clearly visible, its complete form imprinted in his mind. His vision and immediate memory capacity had also been enhanced. After thinking for a few seconds, he walked up to a large tree and delivered a front kick. The tree didn't break, showing he hadn't yet cultivated to the point of breaking trees with a single kick. He was just a newbie who had just learned to use chakra. But his strength had indeed increased significantly. The large tree shook violently, and fallen leaves drifted down like snowflakes. Higashino Shin struck out repeatedly with both hands and soon caught 2 handfuls of leaves. His reaction speed had also increased quite a bit. Feeling the comprehensive amplification of his body by chakra, Higashino Shin was exceptionally excited and immediately started running laps. Instantly, his body was like an arrow from a bow, sprinting through the training ground at a much faster speed than usual. As he ran, he felt as if his light body was about to fly. Though this was just an illusion, Gravity-kun would tell him that flying was impossible. He couldn't fly, but he could jump. What kind of ninja walks normally? Don't they all jump around in high places? While running, Higashino Shin looked up and saw the branches of a large tree ahead. He bent his legs and exerted force, leaping into the air, the target landing point rapidly approaching his eyes. Wait, no, too much force. I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. Ah! Higashino Shin flew past the selected branch and, with a scream, crashed straight into a tree further ahead, looking like a poster stuck onto it. He then plummeted to the ground, lying on the grass with his eyes staring blankly at the tree canopy above. This crash and fall took him quite a while to recover his breath. After standing up, he rubbed his face with his left hand and his back with his right, grimacing in pain. His first high-power leap, and he hadn't mastered the force and distance, crashing directly into a tree. He looked at the trees with sprawling branches surrounding the training ground. After thinking it over, he jumped a dozen times in various directions on the spot, feeling the comparison between the force used and the height achieved. With a better idea in his mind, he cautiously jumped onto a branch of a nearby tree, then looked toward the next landing spot, estimated the distance, and quickly jumped over. A miscalculation, not enough force, but this time he didn't hit a tree. Higashino Shin quickly grabbed the branch with both hands and flipped himself up to stand on it, continuing to jump toward the next point. In the gaps of the forest, his small figure was like a langur that had just learned to traverse the woods, slowly changing positions among the large trees. It seemed that for every jump, he had to calculate in his head how much distance to cover and how much force to use. As time passed, the speed of his movement through the forest grew faster and faster, and the distances grew longer. When the extracted chakra was exhausted, he immediately sat cross-legged on a tree to refine chakra again. But the amount extracted the second time seemed far less than the first. The sky grew bright, and the sun leapt over the horizon. Finally, during another leap, Higashino Shin suddenly felt his body go limp and his feet slip. He fell straight toward the ground as if he had lost all power. Thump! He didn't fall onto the grass but landed in someone's arms. Higashino Shin took a look. It was his father. He didn't know when he had arrived at this training ground. Seeing his son gasping for air, Higashino Jiro carried him out of the woods and placed him on the open ground of the training field. Looking at this precocious brat who usually did everything with confidence and never made a fool of himself, but was now bruised and swollen, his heart was filled with joy. After all, he finally looked like a child who had received a new toy. He couldn't help but tease, "Did you hit a tree?" Higashino Shin felt the faint warmth of the spring morning sun. Instead of admitting it, he asked, "Mr. Higashino, did you also crash into things when you were a kid?" Ahem. Higashino Jiro likewise refused to admit it, shifting his angle of questioning. "Do you feel like your chakra has decreased? Even though you could extract it repeatedly several times last night, today you're exhausted before you can even reach 2 times." It seemed he had been hiding nearby and peeking for a while. Higashino Shin knew why. The chakra extracted last night eventually dissipated back into my body, which allowed me to cultivate multiple times. Today, the extracted chakra was used up by me. That's how it is, right, father? Your grasp of basic knowledge is quite good, that is indeed the case. Although in my eyes, you are indeed a genius with a decent amount of chakra from the start, you are only 4 years old after all. This amount is only significant compared to peers or those 2 or 3 years older than you. Overall, it's still low. Don't mess around like this in the future, over-extracting will affect your health. For now, everything you do should prioritize development and growth, understood? I understand, father. Thank you for the reminder. Higashino Shin had indeed been a bit carried away today. Good that you know. I'll take you back. Lying on Higashino Jiro's back, they walked out of the small forest and into the streets. The shops on both sides were already open, and eateries were puffing out steam. Pedestrians walked in 2s and 3s, some ordinary people, some ninjas, some eating breakfast, others buying groceries, creating a bustling atmosphere of daily life. All of this made Higashino Shin feel as if he were in another world, recalling his childhood in his previous life when his father carried him on his back to the market. Just like now, they both had a broad back. After returning home, Higashi no Megumi had already prepared breakfast. Seemingly knowing what would happen today, she had made much more than usual. After washing up, Higashino Shin didn't even bother to change out of his dirty clothes and immediately began devouring the food. He was indeed starving. Higashino Megumi smiled and reached her hand toward her son's face, emitting a faint green light. After a moment, she began treating the bruises on his back. Medical ninjutsu, the magical and efficient healing method of the Naruto world. The benefits of transmigrating to the ninja world with both parents alive, and one being a medical ninja, were becoming apparent. There was someone to teach him things, and when injured, he didn't even need to go to the hospital. It also came with a happiness buff, which was much more useful than some omnipotent magic buff. After the treatment, Higashino Megumi looked at her son seriously and said, "Injury and pain are the best teachers. They let you know that wanting to be a powerful ninja isn't that easy. Even if you are a genius, you cannot be willful or arrogant, you need to take it one step at a time. They are indeed good teachers. Don't worry, I'll be more careful in the future, Mom." Higashino Jiro smiled and ate his breakfast without saying a word. Every ninja went through this. Sometimes preaching is useless, only by tasting pain will the memory be deeply engraved. No matter how magical chakra is, it cannot be mastered overnight. It requires enough time to control and use it. After breakfast, Higashino Megumi went to work as usual. Higashino Shin was only 4 years old after all. With an adult at home, he wasn't needed for housework, so the job of washing dishes naturally fell to Higashino Jiro. Fortunately, although the system in the ninja world was relatively backward, the ninja community was relatively advanced in their thinking, and men and women were relatively equal. The Higashino family were just civilians, not some great ninja clan. Higashino Jiro didn't act like a grand patriarch at home and was quite an expert at doing chores. "Shin, are you still going to study at home today?" "Yes, father. Is there something you need my help with?" Not exactly. Since yesterday was your birthday, I came straight home and haven't reported to the village yet. Besides that, the rest are private matters, but I might not be back by noon. Theoretically, ninjas should report to the village immediately after completing a mission, but the village wouldn't be harsh on someone like Higashino Jiro for coming home first for his son's birthday. After all, it wasn't wartime, and Higashino Jiro wasn't the Jonin in charge of his ninja team, so he didn't need to report detailed intelligence from the garrison period. On the contrary, this deep love for his son was also an expression of the will of fire, a form of political correctness. "Don't worry about me. You know, father, I can take care of myself. I believe that very much, but I think you're too solitary. You should go out more, meet some friends your age, and play ninja games. I think it would be good for your mental health. Did you play them when you were little? Was it fun?" It was fun. Looking back now, it was full of childhood memories. But he was a mature ninja now, and more importantly, a father. After seeing his son's expression of disdain for childish things, he suddenly didn't want to answer. A precocious child really makes a parent both relieved and helpless. After his father left, Higashino Shin sat alone in the study, quietly thinking over things. The fatigue from cultivating chakra was completely different from the weakness when chakra was exhausted. Currently, his chakra capacity was limited, and he should avoid this situation happening again. Otherwise, if it happened too often, it might affect his physical growth. Another thing was the direction of his future cultivation. Now that he had chakra, should he cultivate the useless 3 basic jutsu or the ninjutsu at home? Higashino Shin quickly dismissed the idea. There was no need to rush, only brats who knew nothing would be desperate to learn powerful ninjutsu. Regarding chakra, he would first cultivate the extraction technique until it became a physical instinct. He couldn't sit down and form the ram seal every time he wanted to use it, that was too low level. At the same time, he could begin practicing chakra control. This was the most important foundation. As long as he could achieve precise control, learning any ninjutsu would yield twice the result with half the effort, including medical ninjutsu. Yes, although Higashino Shin wouldn't become a full-time medical ninja, medical ninjutsu was also in his learning plan. After all, there was a medical special Jonin at home. A ready-made teacher was right in front of him, he couldn't waste the opportunity. This was also why he had started learning basic human anatomy earlier. Medical ninjutsu wasn't something you could use just by learning it. You also had to master a significant amount of prerequisite knowledge. Understanding the mechanisms of various human tissues, the mechanism of medical chakra, the effects of contact with different tissues, pharmacology, various common toxins, and their combined effects, and so on. Among all the ninjutsu in the ninja world, medical ninjutsu probably required the most prerequisite knowledge. After determining his direction, Higashino Shin immediately began studying. First, he extracted chakra. Before the chakra in his meridians naturally dissipated, he could just read books. By alternating like this, he wouldn't waste the time in between. As for exercises like tree climbing or water walking to train chakra control, he could arrange to start those practices in the near future. As expected, Higashino Jiro did not return at noon. Higashino Shin pulled a stool into the kitchen and made a meal for himself. If the couple had suddenly returned at this moment, they would have definitely discovered that the food their son made was different from theirs, and even different from the style of this world. Because he was making Chinese food, his cooking skills in his previous life were quite good. As for the ninja world cuisine here, it was the same as the Japanese style of his previous life. He actually knew a bit of that too, but since he was cooking for himself, his former tastes were more nostalgic. After the meal, he continued to immerse himself in cultivation and reading, unable to pull himself away. Time flew by, and the sky gradually darkened. Higashino Shin looked out the window and suddenly realized his parents hadn't returned yet. Could they be hiding away on a date? Just then, a rare knock sounded at the door. Inside Konoha village, Higashino Shin wasn't afraid of any danger. He opened the door with curiosity and saw two little tots standing there. A boy and a girl, both about his age. The girl had semi-long purple hair and was very cute. The baby fat on her face made her look like a bun, and she was slightly shorter. The boy's hair was black, long enough to cover his ears, with a strand hanging over his forehead. He was about the same height as Higashino Shin, but a bit thin and weak, and his complexion didn't look very healthy. Hello, this is the Higashino residence. Who are you looking for? The little girl stood behind the boy, her face flushed red, but not from shyness. She didn't avoid Higashino Shin's gaze as he sized her up. The boy was much more composed and asked, "Are you Higashino Shin?" "I am. And you are?" "I am Gecko Hayate. I am Yugao Azuki." Higashino Shin froze for a moment. So it was these two. He had actually encountered legendary plot characters and hadn't recognized them at first. After all, there was a big difference between anime and real humans. "Oh, hello. Is there something you need?" "Ahem." Gecko Hayate coughed lightly and said, "Uncle Higashino asked us to come and notify you to go to Yakiniku-Q for dinner." "Oh, okay. Sorry to trouble you. Just a moment, I'll go change my clothes and then we can go." Walking on the road, Higashino Shin curiously sized up Gecko Hayate, thinking to himself, does this guy have a chronic illness since he was a kid? Even so, he managed to become a special Jonin in his early 20s, his talent is impressive. Gecko Hayate felt very embarrassed by his gaze. His personality was shy and slightly traditional, and he worried he was being rude. He asked weakly, "Is there something wrong with me?" "No, nothing." After Higashino Shin replied, he looked at the two of them curiously and asked with a mischievous face, "Hayate, little brother, is the girl next to you your girlfriend?" Little Hayate's face turned red. "Ah. How is that possible? Yugao is only 4, and I'm only 5. Yugao Azuki stared with wide, innocent eyes. "Hey, brother Hayate, what is a girlfriend?" Gecko Hayate. Higashino Shin. "So you're 1 year older than me." "Hey, you two, you haven't said what a girlfriend is yet." Higashino Shin. "It's a wife for when you grow up." Ah. Yugao Azuki was stunned, her face instantly turning so red it looked like steam was about to come out. As expected, children in the ninja world are generally precocious. What a sin. For the rest of the way, the two little ones didn't speak to Higashino Shin again. It wasn't that they disliked him, but they felt that although he was about their age, his tone of voice was like an adult's, making them not know how to communicate with him. Soon, the three of them arrived at Yakiniku-Q. Higashino Shin looked up at the sign, thinking that this was also a famous Konoha landmark. Too bad he hadn't awakened a check-in system, otherwise, he'd surely have to get an S-rank ninjutsu out of it. Higashino Shin followed the two little ones into a booth inside Yakiniku-Q and saw his parents. Also seated were a man and a woman, about the same age as his parents. The four were chatting happily over drinks. The main courses hadn't arrived yet, only a few appetizers to go with the alcohol. As soon as Higashino Jiro saw the bright red faces of Hayate and Yugao, he asked, Shin, did you bully them? You're overthinking it, father. How could I do something so rude? Gecko Hayate and Yugao Azuki lowered their heads, not daring to look at the adults, which made it look like they had indeed been bullied. The adults didn't care, it was normal for children to play and squabble. As long as you didn't. Come, let me introduce you. These are your uncle Azuki Yuhei and aunt Azuki Sakura. They are old classmates of mine and your mother's. Also, your uncle Yuhei and I are teammates, we came back together this time. So it was a Sakura, but with purple hair. Looking at the surname, they must be Yugao Azuki's parents. Higashino Shin obediently bowed to the two adults sitting on the other side. Hello, uncle. Hello, auntie. My name is Higashino Shin. Nice to meet you, please take care of me. Azuki Sakura. What a polite and handsome child. Megumi, he looks just like you. Higashino Megumi. He really does look a lot like me. Azuki Yuhei's hair color was similar to Higashino Shin's. Dark brown hair was quite common in Konoha village, black was the most common, while all sorts of flashy hair colors were the minority. He smiled very amiably and gestured for the three little ones to sit down, while sizing up Higashino Shin with curiosity. Jiro, is this yours and Megumi's child? He seems quite steady and reliable. Steady he is, but he's just not cute enough. Azuki Yuhei laughed loudly. Isn't being steady good? You don't have to worry so much. If you had one who was naughty and causing trouble outside all day, then you'd know what trouble is. That part indeed saves me and his mother a lot of worry. Shin never causes trouble, he rarely even goes out. That's why I asked you to bring Yugao and Hayate today, hoping he could meet some friends his age. Just then, the waiter began serving the food, and the grill on the table started to heat up. The flavor at Yakiniku-Q was indeed excellent, making Higashino Shin unable to stop eating. While the adults took a few sips of alcohol and chatted, he was busy devouring the meat on the side. This made Gecko Hayate, who was sitting nearby, look on with envy. Due to his physical condition, his appetite had never been particularly strong. In his past life, Higashino Shin was fine, but now he was a complete carnivore. After all, if one wanted a powerful body, meat, eggs, and milk were indispensable. Those promoting vegetarianism were either shills taking dark money for their own interests or pure cultists. After a few drinks, Azuki Yuhei glanced at Higashino Shin again. This calm and composed temperament reminds me of a senior's child. It's a pity that child has become quite unlikable now. Higashino Megumi replied, You're talking about that Kakashi boy, right? He's quite the hard worker, often getting injured on missions. I've seen him several times at the hospital this year. His aura is far too cold. Higashino Jiro added, That child, he really is a genius. He became a chunin just like me at only 6 years old. Perhaps that incident last year was too much of a blow to him. Azuki Yuhei nodded in agreement. Yes, it's a pity about Lord Whitefang. I even followed him on missions before. He took great care of us juniors and even gave me pointers on my swordsmanship. He was a respected senior. At this point, perhaps feeling the alcohol, he slammed his glass heavily onto the table, his voice rising. I don't know what the higher-ups were thinking. If a mission fails, just punish them according to the rules. How could they let those rumors spread through the village? And that fool who blamed Senior Whitefang, the mission failed specifically to save his life, yet he turned around and bit the hand that fed him. It's good he committed suicide. If he hadn't, I definitely wouldn't have let him off. Azuki Sakura frowned slightly. glanced outside the booth, and then glared at her husband, scolding him, Yuhei, watch your words. This matter is not for us to discuss. Higashino Megumi also advised, Yuhei, this matter is in the past, and the village has issued a gag order. Don't go looking for trouble. Besides, the children are right here. Don't let them be exposed to these things too early. The two men suddenly fell silent, then each sighed, clinked their glasses, drained their drinks in one gulp, and dropped the subject. Higashino Shin continued eating his grilled meat while paying close attention to the adults' conversation. He knew about Kakashi's ordeal. That happened in August of last year. During those days, rumors were flying everywhere in the village, sparking debates among many people. It started from the initial mission failure, which brought massive losses to the Land of Fire and Konoha village, and evolved into a debate over which was more important, completing the mission or the lives of comrades. Both sides had supporters, and the discussion was relentless, growing more heated by the day. No one cared anymore who had started the rumors, but allowing the debate to continue was clearly shaking the conceptual foundation of Konoha's existence. One must know that the core ideology of Konoha is the will of fire. Abandoning a comrade's life for a mission was clearly a violation of the will of fire. However, ninjas are born for missions, and the idea that the mission is paramount was also deeply ingrained in people's hearts. The two were completely contradictory concepts. Which was more important? Without changing the overall ideological trend of the ninja world, this was an unsolvable problem with no answer. The final result was White Fang's suicide, and the village issued a gag order, forbidding everyone from discussing the matter. The matter was thus concluded hastily. The surviving ninjas, aside from bottling up their thoughts and continuing with their lives for the sake of survival, saw Kakashi change into a different person from then on. He became someone who prioritized the mission above all else, cold, ruthless, and indifferent to the lives of his comrades, becoming that unlikable existence. After a few drinks had dissolved his earlier indignation, Azuki Yuhei suddenly said, speaking of which, Shin and my Yugao will both be 5 next year. Do you think they should enroll in the academy together with Hayate? Higashino Megumi and Azuki Sakura pondered upon hearing this. Both had confidence in their children's talent. Enrolling a year early wasn't out of the question. However, Higashino Jiro expressed clear opposition. Brother Yuhei, we both just returned from the border. Don't you know the current situation? Who knows when war might break out? Enrolling a year early means getting dragged into it a year early. They are too young. Let them grow up properly. It's enough for us to stand at the front. That's true, haha. Having too much fame is a genius and being exposed to killing too early isn't a good thing. Drink up, drink up. Next, the two began telling everyone interesting stories from the border, avoiding sensitive topics until the end of the meal. At the intersection, everyone waved goodbye and headed home to sleep. Azuki Yugao suddenly asked, Shin-nichan, where do you usually go to play? The little girl was born in November, and Higashino Shin, being of the same age, was 7 months older than her. It was perfectly natural for her to call him brother. I cultivate and study at home. I rarely go out. Then can Hayate Nichan and I come find you to play sometimes. Higashino Shin looked at his parents' expectant expressions and nodded. Sure. After getting a satisfactory answer, the parents of both families smiled as they took their children home. It seemed they hoped the friendship of the parents' generation would continue as a legacy through their children. On the way back, Higashino Shin asked, were you and Hayate's parents classmates too? Higashino Jiro smiled and patted his son's head. No, we're just friends. Senior Kumomi was 2 years ahead of us. However, the Gecko and Azuki families are old family friends, both specialize in Konoha-style swordsmanship and have a very close relationship. The younger generations of both families are trained and raised together. Oh. But Hayate looks like he's not very healthy. Higashino Megumi said, it's innate, inherited from his late mother. It's a pity. I heard that boy has great talent in kenjutsu, but he's completely held back by his body. Higashino Jiro added, that's why, Shin, a strong body is the foundation of everything. You must remember that. I will, father. He knew this even without being reminded. A strong body is a ninja's capital, after all. After returning home from the dinner, Higashino Shin persisted in his chakra extraction training as usual, and then practiced his hand seal speed for a while before bed. Finally, he intentionally did not extract chakra, and only began to fall asleep after confirming that the chakra in his meridians had completely dissipated. Emptying his mind and focusing his thoughts, Higashino Shin found that he indeed remained conscious after his body entered a sleep state, but he could feel that this was controllable. At this point, he could choose to let his consciousness sleep along with his body, or he could detach from his body like he did last night. Ensuring there was no chakra in his meridians before sleeping was a deliberate act. He wanted to see if his consciousness leaving his body was related to having undissipated chakra in his body before sleep. The facts proved that even without chakra in his meridians, he could still do the same as last night. In other words, the first extraction of chakra was a trigger that opened the state of his consciousness leaving his body while he slept. After that, it was no longer necessary. With a thought, Higashino Shin's consciousness body floated above his physical body again. In the panoramic, dead-angle-free observation of his consciousness, he found himself about 20 centimeters above his body. He tried to move his consciousness body, but it remained fixed in that position, completely unable to fly through the sky or burrow into the earth like the spirit transformation technique to kill people invisibly. It seemed it was completely different from the spirit transformation technique. This was more like a special state of his. Thinking it over, he could only temporarily assume it might be related to his soul, which came from rebirth and did not belong to this world. After all, according to the information he knew, the souls of people in the ninja world were basically chakrafied. They didn't even have a chance to reincarnate after death. They would only go to the Pure Land and become collectibles for that old ghost, the Sage of Six Paths. It was like a piece of cargo being stamped with the owner's label. If his soul was fundamentally different from those of the people in the ninja world, then he truly might be the only one capable of this. This was a state unique to him, allowing him to communicate with natural energy from the start, and unlike Jugo, he wouldn't lose control and kill people at the drop of a hat. If this wasn't a golden finger, then what was? The scene in the space was just like last night. In his consciousness's observation, those multicolored mists flowed freely between heaven and earth. They were not clearly demarcated from one another, but rather rubbed and squeezed against each other, and one could even see them encroaching and transforming at the edges. The red mist was savage and domineering, towering over the other colors with its absolute volume, like a middle school student barging into a kindergarten classroom. The other colors could still hold their ground, but white was the most pitiful. It was the skinniest one in the class, reduced to being the dot in the daily routine of penguins eating, sleeping, and hitting the dot. Higashino Shin didn't dare touch the other colors at all. After all, one should pick the soft persimmons to squeeze. Ah, no, that's not right. It was about upholding justice and speaking out for the dot. Come quickly to Uncle's embrace, it's safe here. Higashino Shin enticed the white mist as usual, using his consciousness body as a filter to guide the mist, now stripped of its decomposing power, into his own body. During this process, his consciousness body closely monitored the changes in his physical body. If he discovered any abnormality, he would immediately act like a scumbag and cut off all ties with the mist. Higashino Jiro's vacation lasted about half a month. After all, guarding the border was a hard and dangerous job, and it was impossible not to give ninjas time to rest and relax. Otherwise, mental problems would arise. The ninja community was prone to developing mental illnesses, and since they were people who wielded extraordinary power, if someone fell into darkness, it would be a disaster for the ordinary people of the ninja world. If an elite chunin were to truly go all out, they could easily turn a prosperous small town into a wasteland in a short amount of time. In the following days, Higashino Jiro spent most of his time in the village, practicing while he rested. At any time, strength was always the best weapon one could rely on. However, when he practiced, he would go to a larger training ground. The one near the Higashino family home was too small and was intended for children who hadn't officially become ninjas yet. Higashino Shin still maintained his self-made cultivation plan, but he occasionally sought advice from his father. There wasn't much he could ask, though. After all, he had already embarked on a path completely different from his father's or that of an ordinary ninja. Natural energy is powerful. Through nightly nourishment, he found that this stuff not only made his body gradually stronger but also made his progress in chakra control quite pleasing. It was a pity he couldn't pass it on to his family for the time being. He had inquired indirectly, and his parents couldn't feel any special energy at all. They didn't have that concept, nor did they have the special method of consciousness observation. Higashino Shin estimated that even if they learned the spirit transformation technique, it would be useless. If the spirit transformation technique could observe the various colors of natural energy like he could, then Kato Dan would surely have learned to utilize it long ago and become much stronger, avoiding being killed by enemies while performing the technique. Chakra divided people into two types of existences, and natural energy similarly divided ninjas into two types of existences. Currently, in the ninja world, those who could use sage mode, aside from the summoning beasts, might only be half a person, that super pervert named Jiraiya. If Kato Dan had known sage mode, he certainly wouldn't have died so easily. Was the dream of becoming Hokage not enticing enough, or were Tsunade's large buns not soft enough? Higashino Shin currently had no method to infuse natural energy into his parents. Even if he did, he wouldn't dare use it, because if things went wrong, he would personally create a parents sacrifice to heaven magic power without bounds buff. For details, see those piles of toad-shaped stone statues on Mount Myoboku. All of those were once humans who tried to master natural energy and failed. 10 or so days passed in a flash. Higashino Shin arrived at the training ground to exercise early in the morning as usual, but just as he was about to start, he felt a faint sensation of being watched. Could it be the third Hokage's crystal ball? He was just a child from a civilian ninja family. Although his parents thought he was a genius, in the eyes of someone at the cage level, he was just okay, nothing worth paying attention to. Besides, does the Hokage start work that early? Do you think everyone is like the Nanadime? Higashino Shin's heart stirred, and he quickly completed his chakra extraction, his body instantly filling with power. After 10 or so days, he had already reached his previously set goal, making the extraction technique a physical instinct. One could only say natural energy was truly miraculous. Not only that, because his body was continuously absorbing white natural energy, the chakra he extracted could sense the outside world. However, limited by his current chakra volume and the short time he had been practicing with natural energy, the range of this sensing was not yet large, but it was enough to cover this small training ground. With just a simple scan, Higashino Shin discovered the hidden target. He looked up toward a nearby tree and shouted, "Father, what are you doing hiding there?" Higashino Jiro let out a puzzled sound, jumped in front of his son in a few steps, and asked curiously, "How did you know I was there?" "I sensed it." "Sensed it? You mean a sensory ability. When did you learn to sense? That's not something you can just learn, you can't do it without talent." "I never learned it. I just suddenly could these past few days." "A natural awakening. Could it be a bloodline ability? Does our Higashino family have such a bloodline legacy?" Higashino Jiro was bewildered. Being naturally precocious was no big deal, the ninja world was full of such children. Succeeding in his first chakra extraction in less than a minute with a decent amount of chakra wasn't too outrageous either. For a civilian, he was a genius. Even the Uchiha clan and Hyuga clan, who were born ninjas, had plenty of smart children who could do that. But this naturally awakened sensory ability wasn't something that could be explained by just being a genius. Higashino Shin not only sensed someone was there but even knew whose chakra it was. "Wait, could this child not be mine? Have I been cuckolded?" But he and Megumi had been together from the time they married until she got pregnant. Konoha did have marriage leave, after all. "Mr. Higashino, I feel like you're thinking about something bad. Do we need to go back together and verify with mom?" No, absolutely not. I'll be killed." Higashino Jiro immediately protested, while inwardly cursing himself for losing his mind. He knew his wife's character, there was no way she would ever betray him. It simply wasn't in her nature. The two had known each other since childhood, understood each other perfectly, and their relationship had a deep foundation. The ninja world was full of mysterious occurrences, some people even awakened a bloodline limit for no apparent reason. His son just happened to have sensory abilities, it didn't seem like that big of a deal after all. Thinking this, Higashino Jiro suddenly felt relaxed again. His son was indeed a genius. It's good that you know mom's temper. While you're out on missions, mom worries about you at home every single day. Ahahaha. Higashino Jiro scratched the back of his head awkwardly. Higashino Shin thought for a moment and then explained, how should I put it? It might be different from what you're thinking, father. This sensory ability isn't from a bloodline, it's my secret. I'll tell you later. Can you understand? Of course I understand. My son is starting to have his own little secrets. Higashino Jiro smiled and nodded in agreement, then said solemnly, Shin, you did the right thing. Battles between ninjas are information wars. It is correct for ninjas to keep their methods strictly confidential. It's very dangerous if someone masters the secrets of your important ninjutsu. I hope you understand this. I've always understood. Very good. Then I'll ask you a question. In a ninja's battle, no, including samurai and even ordinary people, in a battle between humans, what is the most important thing? Is it ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, or a special secret technique, or a powerful weapon? Higashino Shin thought about it. They all seemed important, but clearly his father had another answer in mind. Finally, he shook his head. I don't know. It's courage. The courage to overcome psychological fear, hesitation, and the urge to flee, the courage to face life and death and dare to fight. Find it, control it, let your blood boil, but keep a clear head. No matter how difficult the situation, never give up searching for even the slightest chance of victory. Courage is not impulsiveness. A clear head is more important than any technique. I understand. Thank you for the teaching, father. Higashino Jiro stopped talking upon hearing this and suddenly threw a straight punch toward Higashino Shin's forehead. The attack wasn't very fast. Higashino Shin's body instinctively wanted to lean back to avoid it, but he quickly realized that was a natural reaction from his past life as an ordinary person. But now, he was a trainee ninja with the supernatural power of chakra. Even though he was barely over 4 years old, with his body enhanced by chakra, his reaction speed and strength far exceeded his 30-something body from his previous life. He instantly suppressed the urge to lean back. Instead, using his small stature to his advantage, he ducked and bent his waist, pushing off with his legs. Instead of retreating, he advanced, dodging the attack while simultaneously throwing a return punch toward Higashino Jiro's abdomen. Higashino Jiro didn't dodge at all. His advantage was his height and reach. He bent his knee and raised his leg, driving his knee toward Higashino Shin's face, meeting attack with attack. Even half of his leg was longer than his son's entire arm, he would hit the target first. The two were almost entangled. The distance was too close to change moves, so Higashino Shin had to withdraw his punch and defend. He quickly crossed his arms in front of his face and was sent flying by his father's knee strike. Higashino Shin felt as if he had been hit by a truck. The massive force sent him flipping through the air several times. All he could do was try his best to maintain balance and control his feet as he landed. As he landed, he channeled chakra into his right hand, bending down to grip the ground tightly. Even so, that force still made him slide 2 or 3 meters, leaving 3 straight furrows in the churned-up earth. During this process, his eyes were wide open, staring intently at his father's next move. Sure enough, the other side rushed over, but as he approached, he disappeared from Higashino Shin's sight with a simple body flicker technique. Behind you. Higashino Shin's eyes couldn't see him, but he still had his sensory ability. Naturally, he detected it and immediately performed a half-turn sidekick, his soul colliding with Higashino Jiro's fist. The difference in strength was obvious, he was sent flying once again. Higashino Jiro gave him no room to breathe, rushing up again with extreme speed. Using an appropriate level of speed and force with both hands and feet, he launched a continuous assault on Higashino Shin. Higashino Shin either dodged or blocked, like a small sapling enduring a storm, at risk of breaking at any moment. But he kept his father's recent teaching in mind, striving to keep a clear head and seeking an opportunity to counterattack. Soon, he turned his disadvantage of being small into an advantage, dodging left and right, his fists and feet never straying far from his father's kidneys and groin. These were the vital areas he could currently reach quickly. After all, no matter how powerful a ninja was, they couldn't endure the pain of a direct hit to the vitals. He hoped Higashino Megumi wouldn't kill him if she found out. As a top-tier ninja even among Chunin, Higashino Jiro naturally couldn't be hit in a vital spot by a kid who had just learned how to fight. He blocked repeatedly, swatting away the wicked little hands aimed at his lower body, while gradually increasing the speed and power of his counterattacks to force his son to adapt to combat quickly. The two went back and forth in the small training field, their figures moving swiftly in a sharp exchange of offense and defense. Higashino Shin knew his father was helping him adapt to combat, and he was transforming rapidly. His habits as an ordinary person from his previous life were slowly disappearing, gradually blending into the combat rhythm of the Naruto world. Meanwhile, his brain became uncontrollably excited, and he began to enjoy the thrill of the battle. A moment later, Higashino Shin sat on the ground, panting heavily. The stamina that usually allowed him to exercise for a long time was exhausted in just a short while during the fight. But his mood was exceptionally excited. The massive secretion of adrenaline made his small face bright red, and his body trembled slightly. Higashino Jiro stood beside him with a satisfied look. Very good. I didn't expect you to find the feeling so quickly and overcome your body's instinctive reactions. This is a bit beyond my expectations. As expected of my son. Perhaps you really do have talent not inferior to Kakashi's. But I didn't win, did I? Father, you didn't even use the swordsmanship you're good at, let alone ninjutsu, and you kept your strength and speed within a range I could handle. Silly boy, how old are you? How many years have you cultivated? To be able to do this in your first battle is already amazing. But I heard that when Kakashi was 5 years old, he had already defeated two Chunin. Who told you that? How come I didn't know? I heard people in the village say so before. Higashino Shin didn't know if anyone in the village had actually said it. His source of information was the anime he had watched in his previous life, where Kakashi had easily dealt with two Chunin who were bullying Might Guy. Well, maybe so. He is that person's child, after all. But Sun, Genin, Chunin, Jonin, and Kage are just rank classifications. You must never use them as a standard to judge a ninja's strength. Even among Genin, there are those with strength comparable to Jonin. The strength difference between Chunin in the village is also huge. After all, the number of Jonin in the village is controlled within a certain range by the higher-ups. You don't just get promoted because your strength reaches that level. Jonin are the village's power class, they have the right to vote in the Jonin Council for the Hokage candidate and influence village policy. At the same time, the ratio of their origins maintains the balance between clan ninjas and civilian ninjas. Do you understand what I'm saying? I understand. Who gets promoted to Jonin isn't just about strength, there are political considerations as well. Higashino Jiro raised an eyebrow, somewhat surprised. Quite sharp, kid. You understand immediately. Your dad only understood this after you were born. You explained it so clearly, how could I not understand? By the way, father, why don't you apply for promotion to Special Jonin? That kind of thing is just a consolation prize, it doesn't mean much to me. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about something meaningful. Shin, has your training been feeling too easy lately? Yes, father. Even without refining chakra, just with physical strength, I can easily complete the previous routines. But increasing training time would affect my study progress. Does father have any good ideas? After a ninja adapts to chakra for a while, their physique will be greatly enhanced. This is a normal phenomenon. That's why I came here today. After Higashino Jiro finished speaking, he walked to where he had been hiding and brought back a backpack. It looked quite heavy. When Higashino Shin opened it, he found it was a set of special equipment. He immediately picked it up and put it on, including wraps for his arms and legs. Weighted equipment, huh? That's a good method. I prepared this specifically for you. The weight should be suitable for your current physique. Most of the slots are empty. Later, as your body grows, you can insert metal blocks with sealing techniques. I've put them in the study. Thank you, Father. Alright, continue your training. Pay attention to your body's limits. Don't blindly increase the weight and damage your foundation. Even Lady Tsunade wouldn't be able to help you recover from that. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I trust you. After all, you've never disappointed us. In the woods of the training field, Higashino Shin fired a kunai to cut a steel wire. A trap was triggered, and 7 or 8 shuriken were immediately fired from multiple angles. Higashino Shin dodged left and right, but was still hit twice. Of course, the shuriken were unsharpened. Setting traps was basic knowledge that a ninja must master, so he naturally knew how. These traps were set up previously to train his reaction speed. He had originally adapted to the number and wanted to double it, but after putting on the weighted equipment today, his movement speed was affected, and he was hit twice. It seemed he would have to wait until he adapted to the weight before increasing the number of shuriken in the traps. In the future, once he adapted to the number of shuriken, he would increase the weights, and vice versa. Higashino Shin set a plan in his mind, reset the traps, and continued his neural reaction training. To make the shuriken and kunai reach the speed of an average ninja's throw, Higashino Shin didn't reduce the firing force of the traps. Although he used unsharpened weapons, after a while, he was still covered in bruises. However, this wasn't a big problem. These superficial injuries were easy to deal with. Having a medical ninja for a mom meant he could be that reckless. Afterward, Higashino Shin endured the pain and continued his usual training routines while wearing the weighted clothing. If this were a 4-year-old child from his previous life, they would have been in the ICU long ago. But who told this to be the ninja world? It was no joke that everyone here was a semi-plant person. Why semi-plant person? Because above them was a true plant person, Senju Hashirama, and even further above were the digital monsters of the Otsutsuki clan who could turn themselves into compressed files, karma. Unknowingly, more than a month had passed since that dinner at Yakiniku-Q. It was now early summer. Konoha village was located in the southern part of the continent, and the weather was getting hotter. During the last few days of Higashino Jiro's vacation, he trained Higashino Shin's combat abilities every day. But after the vacation ended, he went back to work. Only this time, he was performing routine village missions, leaving early and returning late, just like a regular job. However, he still had time to provide combat instruction to his son. It wouldn't be until the next rotation for border guard duty that he would be away from home for a long time. Higashino Shin also resumed his daily training and studies. Since making chakra extraction a physical instinct, Higashino Shin had begun training his precision control abilities. One day, after breakfast, Higashino Shin was studying the prerequisite knowledge for medical ninjutsu at home as usual. A long-awaited knock suddenly sounded at the door. With a slight sense, he knew who was coming. At this moment, Higashino Shin was upside down, using chakra to stick the soles of his feet to the thick wooden ceiling while reading a book. Hearing the sound, he didn't bother coming down. He walked directly from the ceiling to the wall where the door was, bent over, and opened it. The whole process was as smooth as flowing water, as if he were walking on level ground, demonstrating quite remarkable chakra control and physical balance. The visitors were Yugao Azuki and Gecko Hayate. The two little ones didn't see the person who opened the door after it opened. They tilted their heads and saw Higashino Shin standing on the wall beside them. The purple-haired little bun Yugao Azuki was startled and sat on the ground with a thump, crying out, "Shin, who stuck you on the wall?" Gecko Hayate was also a bit surprised. This is training chakra control, right? I heard my father mention it. Shin, you guy, I didn't expect you to be this amazing already. Yeah, with so much time every day, it would be a waste not to use it for training. Besides, do you guys need something from me? Yugao Azuki stood up and patted the non-existent dust off her bottom, breathing a sigh of relief. Oh my, that was scary. I thought you were possessed, Shin. As for us, we're here to play with you, of course. It's not easy to get some time to relax, so of course we have to come out for some fresh air. Speaking of which, didn't you guys say you'd come find me when you were free after the last dinner? Why did you disappear for so long? What have you been doing? At the mention of this, Yugao Azuki got angry, her little face puffing up like a pufferfish out of water. It's all your fault. Oh. Does it have something to do with me? Gecko Hayate explained. Ever since Uncle Yuhei found out about your situation, he and my father decided to give us special training when we got back. We've been locked at home lately. Oh, training. That's a good thing. We're all going to be ninjas in the future, and you can't do that without strength. Hayate, you wouldn't want to see Yugao in danger later and be powerless to save her, right? Gecko Hayate looked at his companion beside him and nodded seriously. Yeah, Shin, you're right. Only by being strong can I protect my sister well. Their families had been close for generations, sharing an excellent relationship. At this point in time, Gecko Hayate had always treated Yugao Azuki as his own younger sister. As for how they would later develop into lovers, childhood sweethearts. Those who know, know. As long as no blonde-haired interloper drops from the sky, they are basically invincible. Yugao Azuki grew anxious. Hey, Hayate ni, didn't we say we were coming out to find Shin ni to play together? You wouldn't go back on your word, would you? Ah, well. Gecko Hayate was in a bit of a bind. He wanted to play, but seeing Higashino Shin's hard work, he felt like training too. After all, he was currently just a brat of 5+ years, not the future special Jonin. Higashino Shin didn't mind relaxing occasionally either. Life wasn't just about cultivating. Going out for a stroll is fine, but let's be clear, I'm not playing any of those ninja games with you. Gecko Hayate immediately waved his hands and patted the backpack behind him. No, I don't like playing those either. Our plan today is to go to the river to catch fish and have a picnic. I've brought all the tools and seasonings. That's a good idea. The central district of Konoha remained as bustling as ever, surrounded by dense forests. Several rivers flowed through the outskirts of the village. The largest of these was the Naka River. It was said that the Uchiha Shrine was located along its banks. However, the terrain of that river was too dangerous, the current was extremely rapid, and a large section of it lay within deep ravines. It wasn't suitable for recreation, though it was perfect for training. Of course, if you no longer wanted to live, it was also a great spot for a diving suicide. Once a corpse entered the water, it would be swept away without a trace. After 2 days of feeding the fish, it was guaranteed that not even a single hair would be found. Higashino Shin was living quite well now and hadn't had his eyeballs gouged out, so he had no intention of jumping into the water. They went to a river near the Naka River, which was essentially a tributary. After the three of them left home, they passed through the residential area and set off toward their destination at a leisurely pace, chatting and admiring the scenery of Konoha along the way. Although Higashino Shin had been reborn in Konoha for several years and knew the village environment inside out, when it came to sightseeing, as long as one changed their perspective, they could always find different joys even in the same places. Arriving at the riverbank, Higashino Shin asked, "How did you originally plan to catch fish? Did you bring a portable net? Or are you going to wade in and grab them? Let's get this straight. Going into the river is dangerous. The drop where this river joins the Naka River is massive, it's a waterfall. If you get swept down, you're dead for sure. Don't worry, Shin, I'm prepared." Father said this is a great way to train one's patience. After speaking, Gecko Hayate took off his backpack and pulled out several portable telescopic fishing rods and some bait. Higashino Shin was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected they would be going fishing, but was this suitable for 4 or 5-year-old runts? Sure enough, the three little ones each took a rod and sat quietly by the river, waiting for their scheduled lunch to take the bait. In the end, before even half an hour had passed, Yugao Azuki was the first who couldn't take it anymore. Where are the fish? This is a waste of time. The little girl tossed her rod aside and ran off on her own to pick wildflowers behind them. From time to time, she would come back to stick a few flowers into the boy's hair, checking in passing if lunch was secured. Gecko Hayate was still competing with Higashino Shin, seemingly seeing who would be the first to succumb to the boredom. With wildflowers stuck haphazardly in their hair, the two of them looked like walking flower baskets. The sun climbed higher, gradually approaching noon. Konoha village, situated within the forest, had no industrial pollution. The river was clear and bright under the sunlight, flowing gently. The surface reflected the sun, shimmering like it was playfully winking, mocking the two little runts on the bank who had caught nothing. There were clearly fish in the river, some even swam to the shallow waters near the bank to forage. But perhaps they had grown slippery from being caught by ninjas, they just wouldn't take the bait, retreating to the deep water at the slightest movement. Is there something wrong with your bait, Hayate? That shouldn't be possible. Although father bought it a long time ago, it's been sitting at home unopened. What? Higashino Shin immediately picked up the packaging from the side to take a look, then gave it a sniff. You idiot, the smell is off. It's long since expired. Gecko Hayate didn't quite understand. Ah, no way, bait can expire. What do we do then? Shin, how about we go dig for some earthworms? I'm done fishing. I came home empty-handed before transmigration, and now that I've transmigrated and even cultivate chakra to be a ninja, I'm still coming home empty-handed. Then I transmigrated for nothing. I can't stand this. Let's handle it. Higashino Shin threw his rod aside, found a few large fishhooks from the backpack, tied them to the line, and with a leap, jumped directly onto the river surface, standing steadily upon it. His perception spread out, quietly monitoring the situation beneath the water. His sensory ability was a byproduct of absorbing white natural energy. It was different from a ninja's chakra sensing or the Uzumaki clan's Kagura Shingen, it was more refined and not easily fooled by other means. This had been verified during his days of sparring with Higashino Jiro. Soon, he sensed a school of fish wandering near him. Higashino Shin's hands moved like lightning. He tried once first, calculating the angle of light refraction in his mind. Then, using a shuriken throwing technique, he flicked the hooks into the water, snagging them directly into the mouths of several large fish. With a gentle tug, he hauled up the entirety of today's lunch. The fish. Gecko Hayate looked enviously at Higashino Shin's feet as he stood on the water. He really wanted to do that too, but he didn't know how yet. Yugao Azuki didn't think that much. Holding a bouquet of wildflowers she'd arranged herself and carrying a cloth bag, she ran to the riverbank and cheered incessantly. Today's lunch was finally secured. After returning to shore, Higashino Shin instructed, I'll handle the ingredients. Hayate, go get some dry wood to start a fire. Yugao, go wash the pot. We'll stew some fish soup later to moisten our throats. Hey, Shin-ni, can we put mushrooms in the soup? It should be very savory. As Yugao Azuki spoke, she opened the cloth bag in her hand. Inside were the fruits of her labor, colorful and very pretty. Higashino Shin looked at the mushrooms, then at her. Where did you pick these? In the woods back there. There are plenty of them. Gecko Hayate's eyes couldn't stop twitching. Hey, those look poisonous at a glance. Not all of them. Higashino Shin sorted through them, throwing the poisonous ones into the river to feed the fish. He warned Yugao Azuki, when you get back today, your punishment is to read the Handbook of Edible Plants for Ninja Field Emergencies several times. Now, go wash the remaining ones clean. The little girl stuck out her tongue. I got it. The fish in the river. With the efforts of the three, the fire was soon lit. A pot was set over it, and 5 branches were stuck into the ground around the campfire, each skewering a large fish marinated with seasonings. Higashino Shin planned for the little girl to have one, while he and Gecko Hayate would have 2 each. If Hayate couldn't finish his, Shin could help. After all, he had a large appetite. While waiting for the food, Higashino Shin asked curiously, have you both been training at home for the past month or so? What are your main projects? Gecko Hayate replied, about the same as you. Learning basic knowledge, exercising our bodies, refining chakra, practicing swordsmanship, and so on. Currently, I can refine chakra at any time during a fight. Are you training together with Yugao? Yeah. Our families' fighting styles are similar, and we're old family friends. So for convenience, the juniors of the same age train together. Good. I look forward to your growth. Yugao Azuki puffed out her cheeks. Shin ni, the way you talk sounds just like my dad. Don't look down on me, mom says I'm a genius too. Yeah, you're a genius. Higashino Shin laughed and ruffled the little girl's head, but she glared at him and swatted his hand away. Gecko Hayate looked at Higashino Shin, feeling a bit embarrassed, but he finally spoke up. Shin, can you teach us the tricks to chakra control? Upon hearing this, Yugao Azuki lifted Higashino Shin's hand again and placed it on her own head, staring with watery eyes. She didn't really understand things like chakra control yet, but being able to stand on the water must be a lot of fun. Higashino Shin naturally wouldn't be stingy. No problem. I'll teach you after we eat. The fish soup bubbled in the pot, and the grilled fish gradually changed color under the high heat of the flames and Higashino Shin's occasional flipping. A rich aroma drifted out, not only enticing the hunger in the three of them but also attracting uninvited guests. Smells so good. I told you coming to the river to play was the right choice. We just happened to be hungry, and here's food. Big brother Iwan's is right. Accompanied by boisterous voices, four figures walked out of the forest and appeared before Higashino Shin's group. All four were half-grown children, 3 boys and 1 girl, looking to be around 7 or 8 years old. Higashino Shin sensed the presence of chakra on them. They were likely students of the Ninja Academy. The Ninja Academy's school system was similar to that of Japan in his previous life, with 3 terms a year. The new term started on April 1st, which meant school had already begun some days ago. And this place was on the edge of the village, quite far from the school. Even if they were on lunch break, it would be impossible to run all the way to the river. Clearly, these unruly brats had skipped class. At this moment, the leading dark-skinned, sturdy boy stood with his hands on his hips and shouted, "Hey, you 3 runts. Hand over the food as a tribute to your seniors." Yugao Azuki's face puffed up like a ball in anger upon hearing this. Gecko Hayate also looked at the 4 with an unfriendly gaze. Although they were very young, they weren't afraid at all. Higashino Shin was momentarily surprised. Was this, encountering bratty bullies? Watching anime in his previous life, he'd felt that Konoha had many unruly brats who dared to bully anyone. Even the eldest son of the Uchiha clan chief or the eldest daughter of the Hyuga clan were fair game. He rarely went out, so he hadn't expected to encounter this on a rare outing. Thus, he asked out of curiosity, on what grounds? The dark, sturdy boy glared at Higashino Shin. Yo, runt, you're pretty arrogant. I've decided it's going to be you. Let's play a round of ninja games. Right now, I am Konoha's Hokage, and you are enemy ninjas. Surrender, you fools who dare to invade. I shall defeat you on behalf of Konoha. After speaking, he charged at Higashino Shin with raised fists. It seemed that since asking for food failed, he'd switched to outright robbery. Unfortunately, his movements were full of openings in Higashino Shin's eyes, and his speed was agonizingly slow. Higashino Shin appeared before him with even greater speed. While ducking to dodge the attack, he instantly slammed a punch into the boy's belly. The dark, sturdy boy immediately clutched his stomach and fell to the ground, crying out in pain, unable to get back up. Boss Iwan's. The other 2 boys shouted, but Higashino Shin was too fast. Before they could even rush over to help, they followed in their boss's footsteps, collapsing on the ground like cooked shrimp, constantly muttering, "Monster, there's a monster." The remaining girl, looking at Higashino Shin who stood before her and was much shorter than herself, immediately crouched with her head in her hands and screamed, "Ah! Don't hit me, I surrender." Higashino Shin thought about it and gave her a punch on the head anyway. There had to be gender equality. The dark, sturdy boy named Iwan's endured the great pain to stand up. His body shook like a motor, but his mouth was still holding strong. I didn't think the enemy would be this strong. I am the Grand Hokage. Higashino Shin was moved by his dedication to the role. Are you that into the character, brother? Seriously, if the Hokage-sama were as weak as you, Konoha would be truly finished. Don't look down on my dream, you fool. I'm the man who's determined to become Hokage. The Hokage doesn't steal food from villagers. What you're doing is robbery, it's a crime. As Higashino Shin spoke, he turned and deliberately asked his companions, Hayate, where should people who commit crimes be sent? They should be sent to the Konoha police force. I remember it's all people from the Uchiha clan. They're very cold-hearted. Once you go in, you'll be hung up and beaten first. Little Yugao also added a blow. That's right, that's right. They're very fierce. They eat 4 kids a day, especially little girls. The one crouching there is the tastiest. Ah. Upon hearing this, the girl jumped up, screamed, and abandoned her companions to flee. The dark, sturdy boy also looked terrified. Enduring the pain, he mustered his strength to drag his 2 underlings away. I'm not going to the police force. As he ran, he let out the wail of a sore loser. Higashino Shin didn't stop them. They were just bratty kids, a beating was enough. If he met them again and they were still that arrogant, he'd just beat them again. Returning to the campfire, the food was already cooked. Gecko Hayate picked up a grilled fish, blew away the heat, took a bite, and nodded. It's ready to eat. Hearing this, Yugao Azuki reached out, grabbed one, and started devouring it. She was starving. Higashino Shin also took one, but he didn't start eating. Instead, he turned and shouted toward a tree on the other side, have you seen enough? If you've seen enough, come down and eat with us. The 2 companions looked curiously in the direction Higashino Shin was shouting, only to see a brat about their age jump nimbly down from the tree. This person wore a blue high-collared short-sleeved shirt and had slightly naturally curly short black hair. He looked refined and cute, with especially beautiful large eyes, though his nose was slightly larger than a normal child's, not ugly, but certainly distinctive. He asked with some shyness, is it really okay? It's okay. We aren't bad kids. Dad often says helping others is a good virtue. Besides, the fish Shin-ni made tastes really good. As Yugao Azuki spoke, she picked up a grilled fish and handed it to him, asking in passing, what's your name? Shisui. My name is Uchiha Shisui. Ah. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. The little girl's hand froze awkwardly in midair. After all, she had just been spreading rumors about his clan, and she hadn't expected to run into the real deal so soon. Thank you for the treat. Uchiha Shisui took the grilled fish and explained weakly to the 3, although the people of our clan look serious, we really don't eat children. Hayate, Yugao. From his clothing, Higashino Shin had roughly guessed he was an Uchiha, but he hadn't expected it to be the future world-renowned Shisui of the body flicker. He didn't have any of the legendary Uchiha ancestral arrogance. On the contrary, he was unexpectedly shy and easygoing. They were all children, at least one of them was on the surface, so it was easy to get along. They exchanged names, and after a few words, the matter of the police force eating children was smoothed over. Higashino Shin asked curiously, Uchiha Shisui, right? How old are you this year? Just call me Shisui. I'm 4 years old this year. Yugao Azuki. Oh, you're the same age as us. You just look like you enjoy acting like an adult, just like Shin-ni. Gecko Hayate. Don't include me, I'm a year older than you guys. Higashino Shin was somewhat surprised, he hadn't expected to be the same age as Uchiha Shisui. Did that mean they would be entering the academy in the same year? He hoped they wouldn't be in the same class, and even if they were, he hoped they wouldn't be assigned to the same squad after graduation. As everyone knows, that's an easy way to become fodder for awakening the Sharingan. Kakashi sacrificed an eye at the start, and Theosakan Sage, Kenji happily received a double Tomo Sharingan, that was actually one of the better outcomes. The pitiable ones were teacher Minazuki, and classmates Tenma and Shinko, who became the 3 randomly sacrificed teammates so that Uchiha Itachi could also obtain a double Tomo Sharingan. The most tragic was Sasuke, who directly sacrificed his entire clan to awaken a single Tomo Sharingan, though it was more like it sort of awakened but not completely, a Schrodinger's awakening. After lunch, everything was tidied up. Higashino Shin clapped his hands. Alright, now that we're full and satisfied, let's begin. Uchiha Shisui asked, excuse me, are you going to play some kind of game? If possible, please let me join as well. It wasn't that he was particularly playful, but rather he felt that making more friends outside the clan compound was a good choice. This was also why he often ran outside. As for why he thought this way, he was still too young to know himself. He just instinctively wanted to integrate into groups of children who weren't his clansmen. Unfortunately, after several attempts, those children showed an unwelcoming attitude the moment they saw the Uchiha crest on his back. So far, only Higashino Shin's small group didn't seem to fear him. Yugao Azuki wagged her fair, tender little finger. It's not that, oh. Shin Nisan plans to teach us how to control chakra. Is that so? Then I should probably head home. Higashino Shin asked, as expected of a scion of a great clan, have you already cultivated to this stage so early? No, I haven't. But I feel that this kind of training involves the secrets of each family. It would be very rude to secretly learn it without permission. What kind of secret is this? It's just some personal insights of mine. It's fine, come join us. Upon hearing this, Shisui immediately set aside his concerns and happily joined in. It could only be said that children from great clans followed the rules, because they were the greatest beneficiaries of those rules. Next, the four began intense chakra control training. Climbing trees and walking on water sounds simple. It's nothing more than attaching a layer of chakra to the soles of the feet. On a solid surface, you create a suction force. On a fluid like water, you control it to create surface tension to support yourself. But the problem lies in the strength of this control. One must constantly sense the situation underfoot and adjust the chakra distribution in real time. Too much will damage the surface, too little and you won't be able to stand. In battle, you don't have the luxury to analyze it carefully. So, like the chakra extraction technique, it's easy to learn, but the basic requirement is to cultivate it until it becomes a bodily instinct. Just like breathing, you don't need to consciously control the expansion and contraction of your lungs, the body does it instinctively. This was a training that required a significant amount of time. Throughout the afternoon, the one with the fastest progress was Shisui. His talent was exceptionally high, and he soon practiced with good form. Perhaps given a few more days, he could reach Higashino Shin's level. One must know that Higashino Shin's control over chakra was becoming more effortless by the day because the white natural energy was nourishing and optimizing his body. Shisui, on the other hand, relied purely on innate talent, plus the Uchiha bloodline's natural affinity for chakra. After all, they were orthodox descendants of the Otsutsuki, and chakra was originally something the Otsutsuki clan brought to the ninja world. The one with the second best progress was Gekko Hayate. Being a year older gave him quite an advantage. The most pitiable was Yugao Azuki, who suffered through an afternoon of setbacks. The poor child had her cheeks puffed out like buns from beginning to end. After the four of them tormented a few more fish in the evening, they ended the day's cultivation and headed to their respective homes. Before parting, Uchiha Shisui asked with a look of expectation, can we cultivate together like this in the future? Yugao Azuki happily agreed. Of course, Shisui. We already know each other's addresses now. If you get bored at home, you're welcome to come find us anytime. Higashino Shin and Gekko Hayate didn't say anything, they just smiled and gave Shisui a thumbs up. Uchiha Shisui's habitually mature face rarely broke into a bright smile, and he returned the thumbs up. Fortunately, the three of them weren't wearing green jumpsuits and their teeth didn't glint, otherwise Konoha village would have gained 3 more green peppers from then on. On the way back, Uchiha Shisui felt extremely joyful. He didn't know why, he just felt happy and relaxed. It was a completely different experience from being with his clansmen. At this moment, his young self even thought that perhaps his clansmen were a bit too insular. They should be like him, coming out more often to interact with everyone in the village instead of always guarding that broken police force all day long. Early morning, at a medium-sized training ground in Konoha, two Higashino Shins stood facing each other. Suddenly, one of the long-haired Higashino Shins reached into the tool pouch at his lower back and flung his hands forward, sending several shuriken flying at high speed toward the other Higashino Shin. The shuriken were extremely fast, flying straight toward the target in a direct line without any curves, unlike the fancy techniques of the Uchiha clan. The defending Higashino Shin held a kunai in a reverse grip, knocking away the shuriken amidst a series of clangs. With his right hand, he drew a black ironwood short sword from his back and engaged the charging long-haired Higashino Shin. Both sides attacked with extreme speed, every strike aimed at vital points, but all were parried. Their positions shifted constantly, from fighting on the ground to the trees, and back to the ground. For a moment, their figures were like ghosts, dust filled the air, and kunai and shuriken flew everywhere amidst the incessant clanging. Suddenly, the long-haired Higashino Shin kicked his opponent away. As the opponent flew back, he quickly threw 4 kunai from both left and right. The long-haired Higashino Shin's hands quickly formed seals. Wind style. Great breakthrough. A blast of violent wind neutralized the attack and even blew the kunai back toward the opponent. The short-haired Higashino Shin originally thought of using the earth style, mud wall technique to block the ninjutsu as usual, but this time he didn't want to do that. Instead, he exploded chakra in his legs, using high speed to evade the ninjutsu while simultaneously using the body flicker technique to appear behind the opponent, stabbing the long-haired Higashino Shin in the back. Poof! The opponent exploded into a cloud of white mist. The short-haired Higashino Shin groaned and knelt on one knee, his left hand instinctively clutching his stomach. There was no wound there, but a sharp, realistic sensation of pain washed over him. Both were Higashino Shin, except one was a shadow clone. To distinguish them, the shadow clone had used the transformation technique to give itself long hair. The shadow clone is a miraculous ninjutsu that can create one or more physical clones out of thin air using chakra. Almost no one in the ninja world can tell them apart, not even Otsutsuki Kagaya. The drawback is that they cannot withstand blunt force beyond a certain threshold, nor can they endure the slashes or stabs of ordinary sharp weapons. At the same time, the user's chakra is divided equally among the number of shadow clones, and before they disappear, they transmit the pain of injuries along with experiences and memories back to the original body. It was originally a great ninjutsu for gathering intelligence and deceiving enemies, but ninjas with insufficient chakra or weak willpower who cannot endure intense pain should use it with caution, otherwise, they might just be handing their lives over. And that's just the shadow clone jutsu, which creates a few entities. If it were the multiple shadow clone jutsu, an average ninja might kill themselves just by using it. There's a reason it was classified as a forbidden jutsu, because it really isn't something an ordinary ninja can afford to play with. Why is Naruto the only one who dares to use it like this? Because he has the Uzumaki clan bloodline, and more importantly, he has at least 2 dads, helping him bear the backlash. Kurama. Ashura. Since learning the shadow clone jutsu, Higashino Shin had been using his superb chakra control to slowly try creating shadow clones with less chakra, so they would no longer split his chakra equally, making them more practical. On the other hand, he also frequently sparred with his clones to train his combat ability and reaction speed, while also tempering his pain threshold. Thus, he was truly ruthless when he struck, specifically aiming for vital spots. Unfortunately, the clone was himself. They were too familiar with each other's habits. Aside from training neural reaction speed, the actual combat experience gained was minimal. But the pain returned was not diminished in the slightest. After gathering the scattered ninja tools, Higashino Shin sat at the highest point of a large tree, drinking the nutritional water prepared by Higashino Megumi from a water bottle. He then looked at Konoha village, which seemed unchanged in the distance, pondering his future training direction. Time had passed imperceptibly for over a year. He was now over 5 years old and had grown much taller. The situation in the ninja world was becoming increasingly tense. After celebrating his 5th birthday, his father Higashino Jiro had once again rotated to the border to carry out garrison duties. His mother, Higashino Megumi, worked daily at the hospital. Over the past year, the Higashino Shin quartet occasionally hung out together, exchanging cultivation experiences and practicing wilderness survival skills. However, since the start of the new school term, Gekko Hayate had officially entered the academy. Uchiha Shisui, due to his outstanding talent, had also begun receiving guidance from clan ninjas alongside other promising young talents, leaving him with few opportunities to go out. Even Yugao Azuki was no exception. The adults saw the situation in the ninja world clearly. No one knew when war would officially break out. Any family with a bit of sense had begun to intensify the training of their younger generation, hoping they could survive the war. Although everyone talked about relying on the team and believing in comrades, as ninjas, they all understood that if things came to the worst, one's own strength was the best means of survival. In this year or so, Higashino Shin had also learned the three basic jutsu, the common body flicker technique, basic Konoha-style swordsmanships, as well as several ninjutsu, genjutsu, and the shadow clone jutsu. These ninjutsu included wind style, great breakthrough, earth style, headhunter jutsu, earth style, mud wall, water style, water wall, and genjutsu, false surroundings technique. These ninjutsu were all common ones, with the highest rank being only B rank. The Higashino family were just civilian ninjas. Even after 3 generations of accumulation, they didn't have any ninjutsu exceeding B rank, let alone a specialized sword technique legacy like the Gecko or Azuki clans. With Higashino Shin's current precise control over chakra, learning them presented no difficulty. His body had also become increasingly powerful due to the daily absorption of white natural energy, and his chakra reserves were quite abundant. At least he wouldn't run out after casting a few C-rank ninjutsu. Of course, the highest rank ninjutsu he currently mastered was the A-rank Rasengan. After all, this was the only technique in the original work that detailed its principles and training methods. How could he live up to his status as a transmigration candidate if he didn't copy it? However, as of now, Higashino Shin had discovered a problem. Whether it was the Rasengan, which he couldn't use publicly for the time being, or other ninjutsu, he felt they didn't quite fit his envisioned combat style. The reason was simple: the efficiency was too low. Among the 3 series, Nin, Tai, and Gen, ninjutsu was the most flashy and was what most children dreamed a ninja should be like. Who wouldn't want to use a flashy and powerful ninjutsu to eliminate enemies, enjoy the praise of comrades, sit in the Hokage seat, marry a beautiful and wealthy woman, and reach the peak of life? But the reality was that ninjutsu consumed the most chakra. With the pitiful chakra reserves of an average civilian ninja, they really weren't suited for playing the role of a ninjutsu turret. Obediently casting a ninjutsu for support and then standing aside to throw shuriken and kunai was their lifelong combat style. Higashino Shin had a natural way to cultivate natural energy. He was certain that as his cultivation deepened, he wouldn't lack chakra in the future, but he still looked down on ninjutsu somewhat. Unless one outputted a massive amount of chakra to increase the attack range of a ninjutsu to achieve a map wiping effect, ordinary ninjutsu was really hard to hit people with. They were usually used by ninjas for sneak attacks or to force an enemy's movement. The Grand Great Fireball technique had even been reduced to a mercy technique. From beginning to end, it hardly seemed to burn anyone to death. Was ninjutsu not strong? No, ninjas mostly had high attack and low defense. Even a cage-level ninja would die if hit by a fireball jutsu while completely defenseless. The main reason was that a ninja's mobility was too fast, making it easy to dodge, which made ninjutsu seem inefficient. In the 1,000 years since ninjas appeared, what has killed the most ninjas? It's the inconspicuous metal-sharp weapons like ninja blades, shuriken, and kunai. Compared to forming seals to cast a ninjutsu to kill an enemy, stabbing them to death with a kunai was clearly faster and saved more chakra. The path Higashino Shin envisioned for himself was extremely fast and powerful taijutsu. Because of the continuous modification of his body by natural energy, he believed his body would be stronger than anyone else's. Then, in coordination with this taijutsu, he would develop instantaneous attack methods through ninja blades or hidden weapons to improve his killing efficiency. In his vision, something like the sword chi in wuxia novels from his previous life would be more suitable for him. And as it happened, the ninja world did have such attack methods. Typical examples were the wind style, vacuum sword used by the future Jonin Hayama Shirakumo, and the pot shadow, danzo attaching wind-natured chakra to weapons like wind-style shuriken or wind-style kunai. Danzo could even directly use wind-style chakra to form a sword. Although that old guy was a bit dark, it had to be said that in all of Konoha, very few people could surpass him in the mastery of wind style. Coincidentally, Higashino Shin possessed wind-natured chakra, saving him the massive amount of time it would take to first cultivate the nature of wind. Thinking about it this way, his future training direction became clear. He should spend all his time on the cultivation of chakra nature, learning from but not being constrained by the footsteps of his predecessors, and develop his own combat techniques. With the theoretical foundation of chakra he had been continuously studying, plus the information from his previous life, he believed it was definitely feasible. Of course, that didn't mean he wouldn't learn ninjutsu. On the contrary, just as learning precise chakra control made learning ordinary ninjutsu very simple, cultivating nature transformation to an advanced level would make learning corresponding high-level ninjutsu exceptionally easy. Sharpening the axe doesn't delay the woodcutting, after all. Besides that, medical ninjutsu couldn't be left behind either. This was a very practical series of ninjutsu and would also allow his chakra control to become even more profound. After finishing his thoughts, Higashino Shin had also recovered his stamina. He immediately put on his heavy-weighted equipment again and began his physical training. Now, the number of metal bars inserted into the weighted equipment was double what it had been a year ago. As noon approached, Higashino Shin put down the scroll in his hand and began to prepare lunch for himself. Not long ago, Higashino Megumi finally agreed to her son's request and stopped working hard early in the morning to prepare a whole day's worth of meals before going to work. Firstly, Higashino Shin didn't want his mother to be so overworked. Secondly, reheating prepared food always made the taste much worse. Living a second life, Higashino Shin's idea was simple: cultivate desperately so that he could enjoy the wonders of the ninja world without being easily killed, and live a life different from his previous one. But he wouldn't become an ascetic and mistreat himself in terms of living and enjoyment. Today, he planned to have steamed fish. Higashino Shin fished a live fish out of the bucket in the kitchen and immediately threw it hard onto the floor. The originally lively fish instantly suffered a fatal blow and felt the call of the Shinigami. After placing the fish on the cutting board, Higashino Shin didn't start processing it. Instead, he extended his right hand over the fish's body, and a green chakra gradually appeared on his hand. This was the simple healing jutsu, a precursor technique to the A-rank medical ninjutsu, mystical palm technique. Green chakra is the legendary medical chakra. It can act as energy to stimulate the regeneration of tissue cells in injured areas, achieving the goal of healing wounds. However, not all chakra can perform medical ninjutsu. Only chakra with a yang release affinity can achieve healing effects. As for how to cultivate it, this involves the precise control of chakra. As everyone knows, chakra is energy produced by a ninja by combining physical energy extracted from all the cells in the body with spiritual energy in roughly equal proportions. If the proportions are wrong, it cannot be refined at all, as the two energies simply will not undergo fusion. But this is the general rule. To make one's chakra reach the medical grade and produce healing effects, one must precisely regulate this ratio. To become a medical ninja, one must control and increase the proportion of physical energy while decreasing the proportion of spiritual energy during chakra refinement, so that the fused chakra possesses abundant vitality. This is the simplest form of yang release training. The higher the proportion of physical energy, the stronger the vitality and the better the healing effect. A contradiction arises. Reducing the proportion of spiritual energy naturally weakens a ninja's control over chakra, yet the problem is that medical ninjutsu happens to require precise chakra control. It's a requirement of wanting both at once, which is why advanced medical ninjas are so rare. If you reverse the ratio so that spiritual energy takes the lead, it becomes simple yin release, suitable for performing genjutsu and certain secret techniques. Therefore, both genjutsu ninjas and medical ninjas require ultra-high control over chakra, being able to refine chakra even when physical and spiritual energies are imbalanced, and controlling it even more precisely. This isn't something an ordinary person can handle. It requires a great deal of patience. Of course, this refers to average ninjas, with the exception of those with naturally superior genes. For example, the Uchiha clan is born with extremely high yin release, while the Senju and Uzumaki clans are born with extremely high yang release. Tsunade didn't become the #1 medical ninja in the ninja world just by having a large chest. In the ninja world, training for chakra control aims for precise mastery. The deeper the mastery, the less chakra is wasted when performing techniques, the faster one can learn ninjutsu, and the greater the power. This is the first stage, where the vast majority of people cultivate deeply. The second stage is being able to stably refine chakra even while modifying the ratio of physical to spiritual energy. The greater the difference in the ratio, the deeper the development of yin and yang attributes. Higashi no Shin is currently at this stage. This knowledge of yin and yang attributes is hard to find in Konoha's public records. Most ninjas have no concept of it at all. He compiled it based on information about the Naruto world from his past life. As for the third stage, he already has conjectures, but it's still too far off to talk about. Just delving into the second stage is a long-term cultivation. On the cutting board, there was no auxiliary scroll placed under the fish's body. The kind of scroll with special formulas drawn on it that Sakura Haruno used when she became Tsunade's apprentice to treat a fish, that was used to help apprentices refine stable medical chakra. Higashi no Shin had used it when he first started, but he no longer needed it now. Under Higashi no Shin's treatment, the fish came back to life again, starting to flop around happily, feeling like it was capable again. Then it was struck on the head with a knife and lost its life. Fish. No, buddy, is this fun? Can't you just give me a quick death? The chickens, ducks, geese, and rabbits that had once enjoyed the same treatment in the Higashino family. Fish brother, you're right. After eating, Higashino Shin went out and, using his mother's library card, dove into the Konoha library. The books at home were always limited, but the library was much richer. Recently, Higashino Shin usually spent his afternoons here studying knowledge about chakra. The Konoha library had these, including the characteristics of various chakra natures, the principles and analysis of various genjutsu, and so on. These were all works of experience summarized by predecessors. When the little rich girl Tenten fell into the infinite Tsukuyomi, she had consulted various theoretical books on genjutsu here. Although it was a world of genjutsu, Tenten knew her situation at the time. The fact that she could immediately run to the library to check information meant that it definitely existed in the real world, and she had been there. Here, there was only basic theoretical knowledge, without any elemental ninjutsu or genjutsu formulas that could be cultivated. Don't expect this to be the Shaolin Temple's scripture pavilion, where the 9-yang divine skill is tucked inside the Lankavatara Sutra. Any cultivation method for ninjutsu, genjutsu, or taijutsu is a secret of the various families and the village. If you want them, you have to trade for them with merit or take a powerful master. Most ninjas believe that as long as they learn powerful ninjutsu, they can become great ninjas, yet they happen to ignore these most basic theories. Especially those little brats dreaming of becoming Hokage, who always feel that as long as they learn a few powerful ninjutsu, they can become like the Hokage. Higashino Shin, however, felt that this theoretical knowledge summarized by predecessors was the most precious thing. As for those techniques, they were merely the fruit born from the tree of this knowledge. Time flew by as Higashino Shin instinctively practiced the second stage of chakra control and studied books. Soon, the sky gradually darkened. Higashino Shin didn't go home. Instead, he ran off to wolf down several large bowls of ramen before heading toward Konoha Hospital to prepare for class. For a long time now, his mother Higashino Megumi always had a few days a week where she finished work quite late. That was because, in addition to being busy treating patients during the day, she also taught classes part-time in the evening, training rookie genin who aspired to become medical ninjas. The Ninja Academy had basic medical knowledge classes, but if one wanted to pursue further studies after graduation, they had to sign up at the hospital to learn while practicing. This was also the method originally proposed by Tsunade. Build a good foundation at school, and have the veterans lead the newcomers at the hospital. The classroom was in a conference room in the hospital, which had been specially converted into a teaching space, similar to the classrooms in the Ninja Academy but a bit more compact. At this time, there were already over a dozen students inside, with more girls and fewer boys. The classroom wasn't even full, indicating that there really weren't many people with a talent for medical ninjutsu. The students were mostly squeezed into the front seats. After all, those who came here were people who wanted to study hard, and no one wanted to slack off in a back row window seat. These students were mostly young but all wore Konoha headbands, looking like they had just graduated a year or two ago. When they saw Higashino Shin enter, they were a bit surprised by his age, but no one said anything. Being able to come here meant he had the hospital's permission. Higashino Shin looked around and found that at the three-person desk on the left of the first row, there were actually only two people, a boy and a girl, with the girl sitting in the middle and the boy on the outside. He unceremoniously hopped into the empty seat on the inside. Hey, kid, someone's already here. Higashino Shin glanced at the person speaking and was stunned for a moment. This was a boy who looked about 10 years old, with short black hair, wearing goggles on his face in addition to the headband on his forehead. No way. Higashino Shin muttered to himself, then leaned back and sure enough, saw the large fan pattern on the back of the boy's clothes. With this look, there's no mistake, it's you, Uchiha Obito. Then looking at the girl sitting in the middle, sure enough, she had brown hair just like his own mother, with a stripe of face paint on each cheek, and a pure, cute appearance. It was Rin Nohara, no doubt about it. Where there's Rin, there's Obito, he really is a loyal flower-protecting simp. Obito coming to learn medical ninjutsu. Give me a break, he was just afraid his goddess would be snatched away by someone else. Now, Obito, don't be so mean, he's just a junior student, Rin Nohara said with a gentle face, stopping her companion's rude behavior. But Higashino Shin wasn't going to humor him. Am I not a person? Am I really not a person? Kid, you're pretty arrogant. Looking at you, you haven't even attended the Ninja Academy yet, have you? Coming here so young, do you even know what medical ninjutsu is? Seeing that Higashino Shin wasn't afraid of him, Obito tried to expose him as an interloper from a professional angle. Then do you know how many types of blood vessels there are in the human body, how the characteristics of bleeding differ, and how the methods for stopping bleeding differ? Do you know how a wound from a kunai piercing the palm should be cleaned, and what the precautions are for using healing jutsu after cleaning? This. Obito was a total academic failure and knew nothing about these things, but it wasn't a big deal. He quickly found a brand new angle. So what if you know? You're too young. Who allowed you to come in and listen to the lecture? My mom allowed it. Your mom. You're killing the great Lord Obito with laughter. Who is your mom that she can even boss people around in Konoha Hospital? My mom is the teacher who gives you classes. Her name is Higashino Megumi, and my name is Higashino Shin. This. Obito was finally stuck and couldn't say more. What if he offended the teacher and caused Rin to lose her chance to study? Whenever Rin Nohara was involved, Obito would start to become hesitant and constrained. Oh, is the junior student teacher Megumi's child? Looking at you now, you really do look like her, Rin Nohara said, curiously sizing up this junior who seemed to have good basic medical knowledge. Yes, senior, my name is Higashino Shin. Please look after me in the future. My name is Rin Nohara, and beside me is my teammate Uchiha Obito. Nice to meet you. Yeah, me too. I hope we can make progress together and become excellent medical ninjas, Higashino Shin said, while also raising an eyebrow at Obito. Obito was already beyond furious. Not only did this kid dare to talk intimately with his Rin, but he also didn't forget to provoke him. I must give him a good beating. But he was only thinking it, he wouldn't actually strike a child. Before he turned dark, Uchiha Obito was actually a very enthusiastic and kind-hearted boy. His personality was just a bit awkward. Soon, Higashino Megumi walked in with some materials. The classroom suddenly went quiet, and even the one-track-minded Obito behaved himself, he couldn't affect Rin's studies. Higashino Megumi glanced at her son, then at Uchiha Obito, who was tilting his head to one side with a pouting mouth, and immediately understood that Higashino Shin had been sniping at someone again. In fact, she didn't like Obito either, because this kid wasn't here to learn medical ninjutsu at all. But since he had signed up, she would treat him normally, not expecting him to become a medical ninja, but even learning some practical first aid techniques would be good. You never know when it might save a life. The Higashino family actually had no complaints about the Uchiha clan, whom the villagers grumbled about daily, let alone any discrimination. The lesson soon began. The first two classes were on medical knowledge and the cultivation methods and usage techniques of medical ninjutsu, respectively. Medical ninjutsu is like a formula. It's not something you can use just by learning it, you also have to combine it with various actual conditions of the injured person. These actual conditions must be judged based on the knowledge one has mastered. It is a very complete system of ninjutsu cultivation and application. The last session was a practical class. The students packed up their notes and followed Higashino Megumi in a swarm to a specially prepared ward. Inside were 4 ninjas who had been injured during training or missions and had not yet received treatment. This was done with the consent of the ninjas in the ward. They were willing to endure a bit to provide some internship experience for the juniors of their village. With more medical experts in the village, their lives would have an extra layer of protection in the future. There were 3 injured people Higashino Shin didn't recognize, but the remaining one he recognized at a glance. Although he wasn't wearing that iconic green jumpsuit, his shiny black hair plus his excessively thick eyebrows and beard gave him away. Konoha's famous eccentric, the eternal genin might die. Speaking of which, during the days when he couldn't call out his system daddy, Higashino Shin had even thought that if all else failed, he would go and take the man as his foster father. Fortunately, he found his golden finger in time and didn't end up with an extra father over his head. With a cheat to use, who would go and learn those life-threatening 8 gates? It wasn't that he looked down on it, but natural energy was much more useful than that stuff. The first 3 injured people were not seriously hurt, nothing more than accidental injuries from sharp weapons during training or muscle strains. Higashino Megumi first let the students judge for themselves, then she corrected some people's mistakes based on experience, and incidentally let them personally use medical ninjutsu to treat them. Finally, she would oversee everything and check for any deficiencies. There are a large number of Konoha ninjas, and different injured people appear every day. As long as these students study at the hospital for half a year or a year, they can accumulate enough practical experience. The only trouble was Might Die. His body could be described as having new injuries piled on top of old ones, severe joint wear, twisted meridians, severe muscle fatigue, and some of his finger joints were already deformed, and so on. Higashino Megumi even judged which of his internal organs had problems through his breathing frequency and scent, as well as the slight abnormal noises from his internal organs heard through a stethoscope. For these injuries accumulated over many years, even if Higashino Megumi was a special jonin in the medical field, there was no good solution. She could only teach the students how to use gentle chakra to perform a full body conditioning for the patient. Incidentally, she cautioned these rookies who had not long graduated that while diligent cultivation is encouraged, it must not be excessive, one must act within their means. Might Die was the best example of the consequences of excessive cultivation. Higashino Shin felt that to cure Might Die, at this point in time, it would probably require Tsunade to come in person, and he would have to undergo countless surgeries all over his body. Nothing could be settled in a few days, it would be a process of surgery while recuperating, a treatment and recovery process measured in years. This was clearly not something Might Die could afford. He had to earn money to support his family and spend a lot of time cultivating, so he simply didn't have that much time to rest. Most importantly, Tsunade currently suffered from hemophobia and couldn't perform surgery on anyone at all. However, the only people who likely knew this news were the 4-member Konoha high-level group and her 2 teammates. Higashino Megumi had once told her son that Lady Tsunade had not appeared at the hospital for a long time. Higashino Shin felt that she had probably run away with Shizune and was not in Konoha village at all now. Today's class ended, and Higashino Megumi finished work smoothly. At the hospital entrance, the students took turns saying goodbye to Higashino Megumi. Although Higashino Megumi was not the only one with teaching duties in the hospital, they were very respectful to every teacher who taught them knowledge. Even Uchiha Obito respectfully said, "Teacher Megumi, thank you for your hard work today." That's the end of part 1. Part 2 is coming soon.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support our channel for more stories.